All right, council, we're going to get started here. It is now 6:30. We're going to call this March 10th study session to order. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Councilmember Amy Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Roshino Farrell.
Here.
Mayor Josh Amato.
Here.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Present.
Councilmember Michael Boyer.
Here.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Debbie Treen.
Here.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Boyer, if you could please lead us in the pledge. And Deputy Mayor, if you could please read the land acknowledgement statement.
Yes. We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Been seconded by Councilmember O'Farrell. Any changes, deletions, or additions to the agenda?
I'd like to suggest a motion or make a motion to move public comment to the beginning of the meeting so that anybody who wants to comment doesn't have to sit through hours of discussion.
Okay, so there's an amendment to move the public comment to the first item. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Councilmember
Stewart.
Thank you.
I'm fine with having it at the beginning, but I also think there should be some at the end. The idea of a study session is that the information is presented to people, and then once they have the information, they can provide commentary. So I'm fine if you want to have it at the beginning if people want to do that, but I don't think we should not have it at the end because for some of these, they haven't been presented any of this information before. So.
Deputy Mayor, are you fine with that change?
Well, I'm fine with it if people support it. Personally, well, the reason for that is because there's it's likely to be a long meeting, and so they can always send us emails and comment at the beginning of the next council meeting. We're not acting on anything tonight. So
well, I'll just propose an amendment then. I propose that we still have public comment at the end so that if anyone wants to comment on something that was presented, they still have that opportunity, which is the goal of study sessions.
Okay, is there a
Second.
second? I think we're technically out of order here on the way the amendments are going, but we can go forward with it if the council doesn't.
How are we out of order?
We would need to vote on the amendment, and then there'd be a new amendment to add a second public comment instead of amending an amendment. But it's not a big deal. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Who was the second? Councilmember O'Farrell. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of adding public comment at the end of the meeting as well as the beginning, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Carries 6-1. And we'll vote one more time on the now amended motion to have public comment in both locations. All those in favor of having public comment at the beginning and end of the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. And now we will vote on the agenda as amended. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, up first is the amending of, or I'm sorry, up first is public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to give public comment?
Okay, no public comment in the room, but we do have pre-registered public commenters online.
Okay.
Per the reasonable accommodation policy, if you've pre-registered and wish to make a public comment, please raise your hand now. Pre-registered commenters will be unmuted in the order they've raised their hand. You'll have 3 minutes to provide comment. Please start your comment by stating your name for the record. And promoting the first commenter. You may begin your comment. You may begin your public comment.
Hello, City Council. Paul Stickney Sammamish. I'm going to wait till the end to hear what happens today, but I will add something just here in short order and a constructive suggestion. Since study sessions have always had comment at the end, since I've been going to meetings since 2014, and people may be used to that, if you're going to change it, you might do it all at the beginning, but I agree with the fact that this is the one meeting where members of the public can speak after hearing what's going on. So I concur with doing it at the end because in my opinion, some people may be anticipating that and may not be online yet. So I'm going to wait for the end, and I just wanted to offer that historical snippet. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anyone else online?
We do have 2 other pre-registered commenters. If you'd like to give public comment now, please raise your hand, or you will also have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to provide your public comment. I'm promoting the next public commenter. Please begin your public comment.
This is Heather Murphy-Rains. I just wanted to thank you for adding commentary at the beginning and also keeping it at the end. Any extra engagement by community should always be welcomed. And I would like to repeat what I said previously about you should want to encourage engagement by community, which includes oftentimes applause, clicking, waving, and it's disappointing that this is going to be possibly discussed tonight. So I hope that you will consider engagement in all things. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one other registered pre-registered public commenter. If you'd like to provide comment now, please raise your hand. That's all for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. We will begin discussion of the draft resolution to amend the City Council Rules of Procedure. I believe our Deputy City Manager will be assisting us in that process. So we'll give her a moment to get ready.
Good evening, Council. As the mayor indicated, I'm your Deputy City Manager. Happy to be here today. Thank you. We, as you know, had a conversation about the council rules a few weeks ago, and so we have provided the council with a redlined version of what staff took away from that conversation. We are here to check in, make sure we got it right, see if anything has changed or if there are any additional edits that you all would like to see. If there is consensus on this tonight, then we will go ahead and bring this back under consent for next week, but we'll just see how the evening goes. This is also an opportunity, Section 7 of your council rules do talk about council committees. And as you know, the mayor has a proposal in for council committees, and that's an opportunity for you all to have that discussion as well, because this is really your decision on how you all work together as a council, and we are here to support. So with that, I will just briefly go through the red line. Page 3 of the document, there was some changes to the language in 2.1 about the council member job description. I'm just going to hover, make sure I see no issues or anything.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just would echo the letter that was sent to the council today by Mary Wichter, pointing out that it's a typo, but it's not so. But residents in the probably the 6th line down, including the city staff, residents groups, which it sounds like it's just one resident. So she had that suggested typing to have it be in parentheses. It's a resident or residents groups.
We can make that change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can we come back to, I know I had a highlighted thing, and I'm trying to find the document where I highlighted that. So I think it was the part where it says, where it talks about the staff role. So just if we're going to talk about the role of staff, that should be separate from the council, the role of council, right? But I just want to make sure that I'm looking at the right thing.
In 2.1?
I think so, but I'm sorry. So
No, you're fine. There is a line that says, council members should consider input from many sources, including the city staff. There's another part coming up. I think that could be more relevant. So 2.1 with the friendly amendment from Mary Wichter. Are we good with that?
I'll just look for council member objections. Otherwise, we'll take no comment as approval of the change so we can move forward. Okay, thank you.
So the next red line here we have is 2.6. Again, I'm assuming that if there are other requested changes that didn't come up at the last meeting, that you all will let us know. But 2.6, we did add adherence to RCW about interference. (2.9.1). This comes up, I think, in a couple of different places. This was requested to ask that there sort of be a graduated way of working through any potential issues. So this language appears here, as well as, sorry, I thought I had the top of page 13 under 3.47 consequences.
No one's lit up here. Councilmember Stewart, you're still lit up, but I assume it's from the previous.
Okay, and then 2.92, use of title or role. We went ahead and struck that one part, but added some language about making sure that clarifying how the title is being used. I'm going to keep moving along. The top of page 13, as previously mentioned, that same language has been also included in 3.4.7. And then looking down at the bottom of that page, we did go ahead and remove.
Sorry, we've got Councilmember Stewart.
do we need to repeat that? Because it's the exact same language in two places that says prior to admonishment, or I think that was also in the, like, be nice to each other section. Do we need it in both places? It feels like we only need to put that in one place.
So that would either be in 2.9.1 or leave it there at 3.4.7.
It probably makes more sense to be here, but
At 3.4.7, staff would agree with that.
I'm in favor of brevity in as many situations as possible.
So are we good if we remove it from 2.9.1? Great. 3.6C, we removed what we believe is old language from previous iterations.
Councilmember Stewart.
Sorry. So I thought we had something here that for things like proclamations, that it has to align with our our policies, or we have to have a policy around that. And I didn't see that in here anywhere, so it wasn't really specific to the modifications, but just that when we were creating the procedure for how we were going to decide this, because there were some interesting requests that came in for proclamations. And so we wanted to have kind of a way that, we had a legitimate way of saying no to certain things that, so it has to be able to be aligned with our current policies or a policy or something like that, or can't be counter to rules or policies or something to that effect.
In 3.6, it says the council will consider requests that are timely, have potential relevance to the majority of Sammamish population. I think what you're referring to is in the top paragraph of 3.6.
Well, it just leaves that so open, and I feel like we have that same thing for things like flags, right? That flags have to align with a specific event or policy that we have, and it just gives us less risk of making it look like we're arbitrarily picking groups, that we align it to something very specific, right? Because inevitably we will get a request that we don't want to do. And we want to make sure it's not arbitrary, because that can get us into legal trouble.
Do you have a specific language you want to propose? Not to make you wordsmith on the spot, but just something we can all get behind or not, or if we can have clear direction for Rachel to go back and figure out what to propose at the next time it comes forward, that would be
Yeah, I think the clear direction needs to be, I thought we had something that we put together around the flags that, again, gave us the language so that none of our decisions seemed arbitrary and could get us into trouble of squelching people's First Amendment rights. So I think that would be a good idea.
I think we understand the assignment. Fulfill it accordingly.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Rachel.
No objections from anyone? Okay. Councilmember Trine.
Well, I wouldn't say it's an objection. I would just say that I think in that section under proclamations, letter E, I'm just wondering, Rachel, if that's where we solve the challenge. The city retains the right to modify, edit, otherwise amend the proposed proclamation to meet its requirement, needs, or policy determination. Unless that's not exactly what you were saying, Councilmember Stewart.
Let us take a look and see what the flag said, and we'll come back with a staff recommendation one way or another. We do get requests for proclamations that we politely decline. So that is a reality.
Councilmember Lamb.
Did we skip 3.4.2, disruptive behavior?
We did. I apologize for that. I was moving too fast.
I just wanted to, this isn't a change, but I did want to highlight this, 3.4.2, disruptive behavior, where it says any person engaging in the following actions may be asked to leave by the presiding officer and barred from further audience participation for that meeting. In point A, that includes slanderous remarks, and we have public commenters that may come in. So this isn't just, for council, it is for people that come in for a public comment, that they may make comments that can be considered slanderous, and that is up to the presiding officer to stop that, to mute that, because that hasn't happened.
So on that point, I'm going to need to have legal feedback on that. I remember several years ago, we had a public commenter that would come in and go after the mayor in every meeting, and the mayor just sat there and listened to them. And it's very difficult, I think, for me as chair or whoever sitting in this chair to determine what's slanderous or not, even if it's directed at me in that moment. And I think it's very dangerous territory to stop someone from talking without clear guidance from our legal counsel on that. So I hear what you're saying. I understand the concern. I'm concerned about the ramifications of getting it wrong in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, I'm fine with legal responding to that.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, one way we could potentially address that is that both on the EFR board and I haven't looked up other cities, but the city of Issaquah, I was just trying to look up Mercer Islands. They have in their council rules that public comment must be directed at the board as a whole and not to individual board members. So I think that that is something that we can put in there to, try to defer or divert from people, coming in and attacking anybody up here. I think we have a process for filing complaints. So if somebody really has a legitimate complaint, they can file one, but it's not necessarily constructive to have that during public comment. And in reading through the MRSC guidelines for all of this, as long as it is enacted equally and fairly all the time, then it does not necessarily get anyone into any kind of trouble, right? It's only if we do it selectively that's when we can get in trouble. So as long as we consistently follow those rules. So I don't know if people would be open to that suggestion that.
No one has any comments on that. I'll speak up here. I guess I have concerns with that. We're elected and supposed to be held accountable to the residents, and whether we think it's fair or not to be taken to task by members of the public. I think it's part of the job we signed up for. I won't like it when it invariably happens to me. And I think that's just part of what the job entails, as uncomfortable as it is. I also think it's going to be very impossible to do it fairly, because someone could say something really positive about one of us, and if I don't shut them down, the next time someone says something negative, I'm applying the rule unfairly because a council member was addressed directly versus not directly, whether it was positive or negative. So I've got a challenge with that. And if there's further disagreement, then what I think we should probably do is actually hold a vote so we can give staff clear direction on whether to go forward with working up something in that direction. Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, I would like to add that when I was on the Board of Health, whenever a commenter came in that disparages any of the board members, they were muted. And so that is not without precedent. I'm not aware of other cities, but there are regional boards that do that.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, reading through another city's conduct for public comment, it says personal attacks, obscene language, derogatory remarks, and disruptive behavior, such as shouting, booing, clapping, and stomping feet will not be permitted. If a speaker is out of order, the presiding officer will direct the speaker to return to his or her seat. And for virtual attendees, they may be muted. So we could put that in there, the personal attacks, or that way they can say nice things if they want to. And again, this is not a singular example. This is fairly common across boards and cities.
So because there wasn't a clear, all of us on board with this one,
I'll make a motion then. Is that what you want, to add this?
I would like to make sure as we're putting this
Oh, but
together,
we're not
staff
voting on
is-
things tonight, so I can't do that.
We're voting to give direction to staff, and I don't want them to be, if we're going to make amendments to this, we're giving them direction.
Okay.
We're not voting on making it permanent. That'll happen the next
Okay.
time. And I want to make sure they walk away having a clear understanding instead of a couple head nods and a couple dissenting. That would be challenging. So I think a motion and a vote would be the clearest way
All
of
right.
doing that.
I move that we add language that requires, that bars personal attacks, obscene language, derogatory remarks, and disruptive behavior for speakers and those in attendance of the meeting.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I'll just, since I made the motion, again, this is not a one-off. I did some research. I researched the concerns about First Amendment. And again, as long as the rules are clear and they are enforced consistently, then it is not a violation of anyone's First Amendment rights. And again, MRSC, which is a nonpartisan body that really tries to provide guidance to cities on how to keep their policies and their meetings moving smoothly, also recommends this. And there are, again, many cities and boards that do similar things. Some will go so far as to say that you can only make comments if it's on the agenda. I don't think we need to go that far, but they'll have those kinds of rules as well.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yeah, is this under 4.3?
Is there a specific 4.3 point that you saw?
Yeah, it's what I'm getting at is that this is a specific section for public comment and testimony. The other section was for council
Right.
behavior, I believe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so I believe in both, but good behavior for all. But I just want, because it talks about backgrounds. You can't have an offensive background. You can't say terrible things. And believe me, this is. I consulted with my lawyer, and I thought this would be appropriate. So, just kidding, Rachel.
I would concur that I did not specify in my motion where to put it, so put where it's appropriate, I suppose.
Yes, put it where it's appropriate.
There we go. Thank you.
But comment is, I like it.
That makes sense.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor of, and I forget the exact language, but it is recorded, if you would. Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Can I get I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Were you and I, right?
Aye. Okay, the motion carries 4-3.
Okay. That is the last of the edits. I don't know if there were any other desires to make changes that we hadn't heard about.
Councilmember Boyer, your light's on if you'd like to.
Yeah, just to clarify, and believe me, I don't want the council to get upset at this. The 5.5, did we, I could be looking at the wrong version, Rachel, because I've had a bunch of these come through and such. Is that, on my copy, I thought I saw a copy where there was a red line. I'm looking at one now where it's not. What's the final version of that? Is an abstention if you don't have a reason why, that's a yes, right? That's a 4 vote. And if you do have a good reason, then it's not a vote at all. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, can you restate that last part of if you don't have a reason?
I'll try. I apologize for not having the red line in front of me, but I believe that unless there's a conflict of interest or other disqualifying matter under state law, if you don't have one of those conditions and you abstain, it's a 4 vote.
It is under the current rules. It is
Yeah.
recorded as a yes.
And I'm just checking with you. And if you do have a good reason, you explain why and you have a conflict, at that point it is a no vote.
It's a
neither
0.
For or against.
Right. So then that's where you could end up with a 3, let's say a 3-3.
Correct. That's what I was trying to say.
Yes.
Null, N-U-L-L. Okay. All right, any other council members have any comments or thoughts on here? Okay.
So was there any question about making permanent changes to public comment associated with a study session.
So I would like to propose that we allow public comment at the beginning of all special or study sessions for the convenience of the public.
So this would be 4.3.2.
I'm fine with them also being able to speak at the end, since that seems to be the preference.
This would just be some minor tweaks to 4.3.2 to on page 16. And the rules are specific to at the end of the meeting and limited to items included on the agenda.
Okay, so would we want to just provide open public comment like we do at our regular meetings, or restrict it to only items on the agenda? I'm open to either one. Just to keep from confusion, I'll let it stand the way it is. It has to be regarding the item on the agenda.
That is what the rules say. I will not say that's what the practice has been.
Fair. Well, then let's open the door and let them speak to whatever issue is on their mind at a study session.
So your proposal is public comment at the beginning and end and on whatever topic is
It'll
of
say
interest
and
to-
on whatever topic, yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Is
Councilmember
there-
Stewart.
Is there a second? Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay, there's been a motion, and is there a second?
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to your motion?
I think we've spoken enough
Okay.
about it.
Any discussion? Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I do like the idea of allowing people to speak at the beginning in case they're time constrained, but I do think for study sessions, because they can, they can be long, I do think keeping the, for study sessions only, that it has to be on a topic on the agenda, because the idea of the study sessions is that we're potentially going deep on something, and so we'd really like to keep even the public comment focused to what's, on the agenda. And then regular public meetings, people can talk, in the open public comment about whatever they like. So I think that would help keep it moving and still open it up so everybody gets a chance to comment on the agenda.
I don't object to that. I don't care one way or the other. I
Okay.
just want them to be able to speak
Great,
at the
then I'll-
beginning.
For simplicity, we
Yeah.
can take a friendly amendment to just be,
Yes, I will.
okay, great. We're just, awesome. Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1.
So this is where we're at the end of the red line portion of this item, and then this is an opportunity for the 7 of you to discuss the council committee's proposal. Committees are authorized within the council rules, but this is really a decision for all of you on how you want to operate as a council. So staff will be here and can answer questions, but really I think mostly this is a conversation for you. So thank you for the time today.
Thank you very much for your help putting that, or helping us work through those council rules. The proposal on council committees, I've just got some quick thing I'd like to say to introduce it here. I'm proposing the adoption of the committee structure to create a more effective city council and get better results for our residents. Right now, we operate as a committee of the whole. Every item, no matter the size, gets brought forward to all 7 of us to deliberate on. Iterations on ideas are challenging to work through in this format. Good ideas for improvement that deserve more airtime never receive it. We're left either approving an idea with very little input or kicking decisions down the road with no clear way of bringing it back for a better result. The committee process should result in a sharper policy coming into the full council from iterative, ideating, tough questions getting asked and answered, and implications more fully vetted. These committee meetings will be open to the public comment will be accepted, and recordings or live streams will be available. Yes, it may take more staff time. It may take more time for some decisions to work their way through the process. We have a structural budget deficit that needs to be fixed. We need more focused energy from our residents' representatives, and committees allow the kind of oversight and policy analysis that our current structure does not empower. And I encourage us to move forward with the proposal. And with that little introduction, I'll take any council questions or comments on it. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah. When I first got on the council, we had committees, and I think that committees can be effective, but only in very specific circumstances. One is that we have a kind of a mature and well-oiled machine of a council, and that we have a council that kind of works to, or has the level of trust that they're going to trust what's coming out of the committees. And I think we're heading in that direction, but I don't think we are there yet. And the reason I say that is because when I first got on council, we had these committees, and we would spend a lot of time coming up with things in the committees, and then we come up to the dais, and it would get re-discussed all over again because the people who weren't in the committees didn't feel like they had input. And sometimes even the people who proposed things in the committees, once they had the full council discussing it, would vote against their own proposals coming out of committees. So it really just doubled the amount of time. In addition to that, based on your proposal, there would be as many as 11 meetings a month. So I feel like that makes things less transparent. So while I think one of your goals was that it would increase the ability for people to participate, I don't know how many community members have time to attend 11 meetings a month for the council to be able to provide that level of input. And so I feel like it's just going to make it harder for people to stay abreast of what's going on. I also think, and you can correct me here, but in your recommendation, you want the committees to bring forth recommendations and proposals. So I did a little research on what good committees do with councils, and they don't do that because that's really the role of the full council. They can bring forth options and bring forth all of the information around options to potentially narrow the options down. But it is not recommended that your committees become the body that makes those decisions, because if they come forth with a recommendation, does that mean that as a council we're not going to explore the other options and understand why those other options weren't selected? So I would say I'm not opposed to committees. I'm opposed to them right now, and I'm certainly opposed to having 4 that are going to meet as much as twice a month. I think that's too much. I think if we want to create an ad hoc committee for a very specific thing and give them very clear guidance on what their scope is and what the expectation is that comes back to us as a whole council body, I'd be okay with that. But I'm struggling with how this is going to work better. When, it comes to budgetary things, you were like, well, I see you on the budget committee. Well, that's great. But what if Michael's not on the budget committee because there are 2 other people that want to dig deep into the budget, and then he's still got all of his questions. And before anyone casts a vote, they have to be sure that they feel like they have all the information, or at least as much information as they can, because these are big, important decisions. So, and then there's also the issue of staff time. And I don't think we can underestimate that. If we're going to have deep policy discussions on the budget, that means we're going to have to bring in staff from every department, right, to understand the costs. And we're going to have to bring in experts on revenue. But I'm pretty sure we're going to want all those same people here when we discuss it as a council as a whole. If we're discussing housing policy or transportation, it's not going to be a single staff member that can answer all the questions and go deep on policy. It's going to be multiple staff members. And I'm guessing it might even be senior staff as well in some cases. So I would like to understand from the city manager, like, what is this going to cost in terms of time? And what are we not going to be able to do if we do all of this? And I don't mean to, I'm kind of being a little tongue-in-cheek, but you said we shouldn't decide anything unless we know what it costs before we make a decision. So we should understand what this will cost, and do we think it's really going to save time up here as a council if we go there? So those are just my thoughts. Thanks.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I guess I'm willing to try because I haven't had the experience, so I'm speaking from a point of inexperience. But I have some hesitation because I think we're trying to get a balance between efficiency and transparency, and If this were to make these sessions faster or more efficient, I get that. I guess the having us have a deeper understanding on a topic we like, all the things that Councilmember Stewart went through, more effective decision-making quickly, I get that. Yet, I think I worry about the public seeing some, what I would say, participation being fragmented, because residents have to follow several committee meetings rather than this one. Now, I know they can do that, but I think that's going to have an effect on public engagement. I think that, again, at the risk of repeating, I think that you might have some council members feel they've been excluded because they're not on that committee, although there are mitigations, like we could rotate. But then you're not getting the expertise because you've rotated off of something that you knew quite well. I'm also uncertain of the flow of information and relationship with our citizen commissions. And so if we get a recommendation from a commission through staff to us or through commission to us, and then from a committee council to us, we'll have multiple recommendations, I guess. I'm not sure how to sort through that. Not that we can't. I would say other thoughts are that made my highlighted notes here. An unfortunate side effect might be that we put together a recommendation, comes here, and that means that there might be pressure to avoid reopening discussion as recommendations arrive fully vetted. So that means that it'll reduce kind of the broader deliberation, and we won't see it come to council. And I fear that the public might see this as actions are predetermined because they've been prepackaged. Like I said, I'm okay with going forward, but there are those hesitations. I think an alternative might be, as Councilmember Stewart brought up, task force that are specific. We can focus those and get things done. The time itself, these all have to be in the evening, I'm imagining. So 4 of them in the evening means that it will then be unlikely for us to attend any citizen commission meetings because they'll probably have to happen at the same time, and I try to attend most of those. Now, these are all manageable. We could have ways to get around this, but I'm worried mostly about the impact to transparency and trust. So here we are later on tonight, we're going to talk about our trust and transparency goal. I'm worried that this may impact that. And then there's this natural conflict or imbalance with these citizen commissions and their decision-making and recommendation process. I don't know how that's going to play out. So again, I'm okay with going forward because I'm uninformed. I'm willing to try. I walk in with those hesitations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to get a better understanding of pros and cons. Like, this would be a huge change to how council operate and how we communicate that out to the public so that they would understand when they would come to a new council meeting why it looks so different and getting that out to the public. Possibly it would be prudent to start with one committee and see how it goes, because I think if we put out all the suggested committees all at once, I think it's a lot to unleash all at one time, because maybe we don't know exactly how it's going to operate. I'm a little concerned that council members themselves will have time to be on all these committees, also working full-time jobs. Most of you do, however, I don't, right? Just at home eating bonbons. But for those of us who have full-time 9-to-5s, I'm not sure how they're going to be able to fit this also into their workload, and also doing coffee with council, attending other kind of community functions, etc. It might be a heavy load to lift for us. would then kind of getting into the nitty gritty of that, like how many committees would I be required to sit on? How long will these meetings last every session? How often will they occur? And then what happens if they don't work? If we're all on these committees and we're finding that this is not working, the negatives are outweighing the benefits, do we stop and revert back to where we were? And that's very confusing as well. We may even consider that maybe on some of these subjects, maybe a new commission is what we need as opposed to a new council committee. It's been suggested before of like a transportation commission. Maybe that's where we need to begin. I mean, I've been on commissions where we've sent up work and sent up reports and proposals and did a lot of work on, say, like on housing. This is several years ago, for the report just to be completely dismantled and the work, didn't go forward at the council level. So I don't know. I think I'm hesitant about releasing this amount of change all at once. And we're all not quite sure how it's going to be. Maybe we start very small and we do one committee very deliberately. Maybe we add a commission. And then, like I say, I'm concerned, and I agree with everything that Councilmember Boy and Councilmember Stewart brought up, so I'm not going to rehash those. But I am actually concerned about the workload that it will present to individual council members who may not have the bandwidth for this, or the schedule in which it will allow them to participate at the level that they would want to, so that they get all the information. I also think, I always think about people coming up behind us when we are no longer here, and how attractive being a city council member may look to somebody who might consider running, and kind of go, well, I don't have the time for all that work, so therefore this is not for me. So anyway, I think about that often too. So I think if we're going to go down this road, we start small, we start baby steps and see how we get on, so that we don't have to like put the brakes on it and go back to how it was, because that's super embarrassing. Okay.
Councilmember Lamb.
So I agree with much of what has already been said. I'll just add a couple of points. Specifically on staff time, if there's 2 staff members that will be on each committee, that is an additional, that's a fair amount of extra work. And then there is the video firm that we use, so that is a hard cost. That's not just an opportunity cost for this person to videotape all the meetings and to post them and edit if needed. And so we have a transportation committee that would fall under the Public Works team, and the Public Works team will be working on the solid waste contract this year, and it's my understanding that that is a significant amount of work for the Public Works team, and the Public Works team is also short on headcount, as with all our departments. They need, I believe there's vacancies on our, in each of our departments. I also would prefer that policy not be shaped before it comes to me. I think there's the potential to not only shape policy from the committee perspective, but they also have the opportunity to stall policy, and that to me is also concerning. And finally, there were, in our retreat, there were council members that didn't support DEIB. So my concern would be that policy is being shaped without the lens of DEI. And so that to me is doing a disservice to our community. And that's what I have. I'm fine with an ad hoc committee. I know budget season is coming. If there's a committee like just for the budget, I would be supportive of that. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I don't discount any of those concerns among the group. But in my mind, first of all, I've never worked on a council that had committees, so I don't have a bias toward it. It's just been proposed, and I'm looking at it. The items that go to the committee would be assigned to the committee by the city council. So it doesn't mean that we're giving up any control over what's happening in the committees. At least that's my vision for how it would work. We would determine what issues need a deeper dive by having 3 council members really work on a particular problem or issue. I would anticipate that there would be a minority report come out of that group as well if there was disagreement among them about what the right synopsis or presentation would be. The full council would still receive the presentation we receive now. It's just that a few council members would have taken a deeper dive and be prepared to discuss that. This is my vision of it. I've never had a council that had committees. I do think being able to take a deeper dive might allow us to move more quickly on some things, because if we come into the whole council and then we send back information and it's another month before it comes back to us, this is a very slow process that we run through right now. And if there were smaller groups that were working on it in between, that might move things more quickly. I share the concerns to a degree. I'm willing to give it a try. We might find that it really helps us get a deeper dive into the issues we're dealing with. So I would support it.
Okay. Any other council members have anything? Councilmember Boyer.
Yeah, since we're trying to give direction, like I said, I think there's advantages and disadvantages, but as you're recording things, Rachel, or however you're going to do this, I would say that there are some ways to address the disadvantages. I think you can reduce the how you set them up can make a big difference. We can establish clear limits to prevent, certain committees from dominating. We can set public comment rules to improve engagement. We can publish when those are going to happen. We can clarify what committees do what in terms of are they advisory or are they binding. I think there's some ways to do that. I would like to understand those, and I'd like to understand the relationship between this council, the council committees, our citizen commissions, and any task force that we might have, and see if we can line those up to have it make sense so that we're not redundant in any way. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah. I guess I'm a little confused at why something would be able to move through a committee faster. Usually, and I'm not throwing staff under the bus, but usually when we have a bunch of questions and it has to go back to staff, partially it takes time because staff has a full workload, right? It's not like they're waiting for us to give them more work, right? They already have a full workload. So when we don't make a decision and we push that back, then they need time to go dig into it and do it and balance that with their other workload. Much of what they do, we don't see, and a lot of that is stuff that they don't have a choice to do, right? I mean, when there's a public safety issue, they have to go deal with it. When there are things that have to be submitted by a certain time due to law, right, they have to deal with those. So I guess I'm not really clear how things would move more quickly. And if we want to dive deeper, I'm all in on that. I think we just have to plan our agenda here, maybe a little bit differently, because I don't see why we can't dive deeper here. We used to do study sessions at tables, so we weren't up here, so it was more casual. So if the concern is that doing our study sessions and the deep dive seems too formal up here, we can go sit around the tables and make it more of a deep dive and diving in without having to do this. I think if we're going to do this, I think we need to answer a lot more of these questions before I'd even be comfortable voting on a proposal like Councilmember Boyer was calling out. We need to know what specifically, right? This proposal says most policy-related deliberations are held at the committee level. So that's concerning, right? That the policy deliberation is happening with 3 people. I mean, let's be honest, we have a city of 6,000 people that's represented by 6 households right now. Now we're going to take it down to 2 or 3 households in a committee. So that concerns me that we already lack representation, and that we're, again, narrowing potentially who's going to know about that committee meeting, who's going to be able to see it and attend. So I just think it's really important that we don't take the policy deliberation away from the council. That's literally our job. I'd also like to know if the city manager would be willing to share what effects he does believe it has on staff and what effect it would have on our union members, right? If we're talking about adding meetings in the evenings, which would be required for those of us who have full-time jobs, what does that mean for them? Because we're potentially changing people's working hours on a more permanent basis. So I think there's a lot to consider, and I think we'd have to work through a lot of those details before we should be making a decision on this, right? What specific things? Is it a 2-1 vote or a 3-0 vote coming out of a committee before it comes to the council? All of those types of things need to be worked out, I think, before we make any decisions. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Is it okay to ask the city manager to weigh in on the effect on staff? Sorry, I don't mean to, I'm sorry, Roisin, I didn't mean to, but.
There goes. So to answer your question, Councilmember Stewart, it would be a change in working conditions. This is something that we would have to work with our union partners on if that was the direction of council. And it would be changing people's workloads as well. We wouldn't be bringing new staff on. This would have to be done with our current staffing levels. Excuse me. I think one of the other things just to consider as part of that is that we would have to have some redundancy in case somebody is not available. We would have to assign at least 2 people to staff the committees. We would be much more noticing of committees and agendas, and that's publishing the agendas and then making sure that there's time for the staff to do work in between both council meetings and committee meetings in order to bring things back forward. So it does, in all likelihood, it elongates what the process would be, and that's neither here nor there from an opinion perspective. That's just is in order to be able to make that all happen. Without knowing what the specific request is, it's hard for us to be able to actually go in and do a sort of a detailed review of what the impact would be. If that's council's direction for us to look at that, we're happy to do that. But we're looking for this discussion to figure out what the next step is. And as part of that, we would also want to understand from council what that looks like in terms of how the things get assigned and what goes and what doesn't. For things that are bigger, and I'll just use, someone brought up, I apologize, I don't remember who, but the solid waste contract, I would propose that needs to be an all council discussion given its impact. And so how to separate out those pieces, and that's just things for you all to consider. But it would definitely be a change in how we do business at the moment. So if that answers your question, Councilmember.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Just from looking at the draft on where it says proposed committees, and it says the mayor and deputy mayor would have the authority to appoint specific members to the committee. And I'm not sure that I'm on board with that language. And because what if a council member cannot serve on the committee either because of their workload in their own lives, or what happens if a council member just doesn't want to be on a committee? Do they have the right to say, no, thank you? And if they don't want to sit on any of the committees, is that okay too? Or does that look like they're shirking their council member obligations? So that I think that needs to be sorted out too, because this is so new. And when all of us were running for council, this was not a system that we thought we were signing up for. This is what we were signing up for. We didn't realize that it's going to be all this committee work. So I don't know if you could have the authority to tell council members you must serve on this committee. So I think that's something that would have to be discussed as well.
Thank you. All right, I'll take some of the points. There's no other lights up here. So since yours, Councilmember O'Farrell, yours is earliest in my memory here. I view it as the appointment process similar to our regional boards and committees that we serve on. So while the mayor and deputy mayor appoint them, it's a process where people express their interest in it, and then it's an appointed position to that. A lot of the concerns I think brought up tonight have merit, and I get that it's unknowable, the outcome of this. However, we're also talking about specific details about how these committees function based on rules that don't exist or haven't been created yet. So those would need to be built out, and that would be a council process to determine exactly how work gets handed off to each individual committee versus staying with the full council. And that, I believe, would be a council decision if something gets kicked down to committees to review in detail versus just deliberated at the council level. I think a lot of I don't mean to repeat myself, but I think a lot of the concerns brought up tonight can be addressed as we put together the charters of each of the committees, 2 versus 1 vote, minority viewpoint versus majority viewpoint, and how that process functions with regards to our commissions. This proposal here by no means is something that would end up in the council rules and be followed. There's nothing here to really follow other than this is a kickoff point of discussion for all of us. Let's see, the other element, there was something else that was important. There was many items that were important, but the number of meetings, I think, would all be determined based on the workload of each committee, and that would be set by our work plan and then the work that gets kicked down to the committees by the council. So 1 meeting a month versus 2 versus timing, I think that it's all within our decision-making process up here at the dais, and not something that would somehow just be preordained and roll down to the committees. So those are my thoughts on some of your concerns, which I do hear and take seriously. Sounds like there's, I think, some split opinions upon what to do. And right now the council has not given staff really clear direction. So if Councilmember Stewart, you have...
Yeah, I wanted to, when we did our regional boards and committees, and you and the deputy mayor came back with those recommendations on appointments, I wasn't really sure where that came from. That's actually not in our rules, and that's not typically how that's done. So it is interesting that we're sort of taking a rule that doesn't exist and sort of now applying it more broadly. And I'm not saying that you guys would do this, but if you get to sort of make those appointments, right? And I think what you're saying is some of Councilmember O'Farrell's concerns might not be there if somebody says, I don't want to do it, but you would also then have a lot of power to decide who's going to be on that committee, and that would potentially, since again, you're saying that the deliberation is happening in the committee on what those outcomes might be. And that is a little bit concerning, right? That would be something that we're now taking 2 people to then assign a committee of 3 that's going to come back with something that is a near final decision, right? Because we then, as the council as a whole, aren't going to get what all the options are and what are all the pros and cons of all the options. We're just going to get what the recommendation is. And I have a lot of concerns that just, again, buries a lot of the important information. And I'm not totally comfortable with that personally, right? I have a hard time taking votes on something where I don't have all the information. And I don't know how we would get that. Like, if it's a committee, I'm guessing that only 3 council members can attend. If a 4th council member attended, there would be a quorum. And even though it's an open public meeting, that could be dicey. So if I can't attend, I can only watch. So that means I can't have any input on the committee, and I can't, and then I'm going to just want to bring it up up here anyway. So it just seems like, again, if we are going to do this, I do think we need to pick a particular subject, not like transportation policy, but a transportation project potentially, and try this out and see how it works. But I just think there's not enough information for us to make a decision here at this point, because there's a lot that's just left to the imagination. And to vote for this without knowing all those details seems a little bit scary. And I really don't know how we mitigate for the transparency issue. I think Councilmember Boyer said a lot of this can be mitigated, but I just don't think we can mitigate for that transparency issue, because it says, some of them might be during the day, some of them might be in the evening, they might be live streamed but not recorded. So I think we've got to work through all of that, because I don't know how we are more transparent when we're making people do more work or watch more meetings, right? Thanks.
Okay, there's no other lights lit up here. So what I'm going to do is I will make a motion to request that the staff, that the city manager works to develop a sample charter that can be used for these committees to, that takes into account the concerns raised tonight and creates a more solid structure from which we can actually deliberate, debate, and vote on. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I get the concern. I will speak to my motion. I get the concerns that have been brought up, but I think that this is not a unique proposal. Many cities across Washington use a committee structure. This is not something I've made up out of whole cloth. A lot of localities do this, and with good results. Some of them do it with bad results. Sammamish was one that was iffy for a while and then decided to get rid of it. Now we're looking at putting it back in place. And I think the ultimate guide should be, are we going to end up with better policy, better budget results by giving our council members a chance to dive deep on some of the stuff that we do not get to do up here on the dais. So that's why I'm pushing this forward, and I take all of your concerns seriously, and I hope that we can address that through the creation of a sample charter. Councilmember Boyer.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, could you repeat that motion again?
Not verbatim, but effectively, it is to ask the city manager to come up with a sample charter that takes into account the concerns brought up tonight that we could use as a starting point for deliberation on these committees working going forward. So that would.
Got it. Am I on? The reason why I'm asking is that if I'm trying in my mind to understand if the concerns that were brought up could be reconciled in a charter document. And if that's the case, I understand. If this is precluding resolution of all the issues that were brought up, I suspect we'll still have those questions. So that's why I was asking for clarification on the motion.
If I may address your question there, I don't think it's going to address all of the concerns brought up tonight, but it'll at least be a starting point, because right now we are raising concerns that are very specific on a policy proposal that is very broad, and it's hard to address these concerns until we actually get a specific policy proposal for committees in front of us to debate on the specific merits or not of the structure. So that gives us an opportunity, this gives us an opportunity, I believe, to figure out if it's going to work for the entire council or not. Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, I just want a better understanding of the costs, the hard costs and the opportunity costs on staff before a charter is before we even spend the time on the charter. Because I'd like to know what staff will not be able to work on these committees. I think that's really important, because they do have a very heavy workload and they are understaffed in each department. So before we do anything with the charter, I would support, asking the city manager to take a look at the costs and the projects and the workload. What percentage of workload increase would each department member have to take? Is it an additional 20% more work? I don't know. So I guess that's what I'd want to know.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak for the city manager, but I think we're putting him in a really tough spot asking him to do this when we don't have more clarity on what we're looking for. I think I think there have been multiple viewpoints, some of which are mutually exclusive. And so I don't want to ask him to do something that he can't be successful at doing. I also I think it is really important that we get an estimate on the cost because, again, looking into how do these work in other jurisdictions, one, I don't think they cover as broad a topics. Two, they don't do, I forget what you called our minutes. They're like action minutes, right? They only really capture, motions and decisions that were made and things like that. If you want these to work, you need detailed minutes to come out. And that in and of itself can take quite a long time to produce. So I think that we really do need to understand the costs. And I still don't understand why, if the goal is to go deeper, why don't we just do it here and take the time? Right? I mean, if we want to go deep on the budget, because that's such an important topic, like if a committee goes off and has that conversation, aren't we going to have to still review all of that here so everybody knows, like, we're proposing to cut, major programs, or we're proposing to raise taxes, or whatever the proposals are going to be? We're going to have to go deep to understand why we're making those decisions. Those are huge. So I think if we're going to go ask the city manager to go create a charter, I think we need to give them a lot more direction, and I don't think we're even close to being unified on what that direction would be at this moment. Maybe we should form a committee to form committees. Sorry.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the motion is for the city manager to create a single charter, correct?
It resolves all these issues.
That's the short version.
Yep.
Yep. And so we're not voting on whether or not we're going to go forward with this council committee process yet. Is that true?
Correct.
This is just to get the ball rolling for one charter, and then we're going to discuss more. Is that likely?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
When do we see, so say this was smooth sailing and we went through, like, when do you envision this being rolled out? Like, what's the time frame?
I don't have a time frame. I think a lot of it depends upon what our city manager thinks can be. There's multiple moving parts to get this to work, including figuring out everyone's individual schedules, the staff availability, and so there's no time certain, and I wouldn't seek at this point to put any arbitrary timeline on the formation of the committee.
Okay, because I think much more discussion has to happen on this issue before I be comfortable voting on anything. Maybe we need 2s and 3s. Maybe we need more discussion on this and much more clarity. But, I wouldn't feel comfortable about voting on this right now. But I just would need a lot more information that what we're about to do is going to be effective, is not going to cost us more money. We're going to get better decisions. And I support the fact that we want to make better decisions. We want to make them better informed, give the public more opportunity to hear more information. And I'm just not sure that that's what we're going to get. And I think if we're going to do this, we need to start very small. We need to start with one. I wouldn't roll out all of these committees. I think that would just be too much. And I think it would be kind of, in a way doomed to fail just because it's too many new things all at the same time. But yeah, I think we need further discussion and maybe like 2s and 3s, that type of thing.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to point out that there is a section in the council rules called council committees, which identifies the purpose and the structure, potential structure of committees. It's way too light to direct our decision, but I just want to point out this is not something that was pulled out of a hat. It is used in many cities. I would assume that we would, maybe that's a bad word, but I would expect that we would review the charters from other cities that have committees like this. I just got a email announcing all the appointments that were made for North Bend's council committees. So I do agree. I like the idea of getting a little more information. That would certainly be helpful. And I would love to see us start with a transportation committee, because that is something that is, or a public works and transportation committee, because that has not got an outside commission that is charged with that. The Planning Commission does look at some transportation information, but not as deep a dive as we really need to take to inform the council. So that's just my thoughts. I mean, we're not doing something that is way out of line or asking for something that's way out of line. I would like to try it, whatever steps we need to take in order to get comfortable with that. But it would be interesting and useful to see if that actually does help us get a better or more complete picture on the decisions we're making.
Okay, we're now on to the third round, I think, and this is going into the second round while we've got a motion on the floor. So are we speaking directly to the motion?
And Councilmember Treen hasn't gone yet.
Councilmember Stewart, you were up first, but I can jump to Councilmember,
Yeah,
actually, I'll jump to
he hasn't gone
Councilmember
once, yeah.
Treen. He has not spoken yet.
A call for the question.
All right.
That takes a vote, but are we going to vote on calling for the question? I just wanted to ask the priority of this, given, I'm sorry.
So there's been a call to the question. So all those in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was opposed?
Nay.
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 Sorry, aye.
Okay.
Oh, so I don't get to ask my question? That's what he's saying, calling for the question means we don't deliberate anymore.
on the floor. We should vote.
Councilmember Boyd.
I wanted to hear the question, so I probably answered.
Sorry, the motion fails.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, so again, I'm not a permanent no, but when I think about the priorities right now, right, we haven't even talked about our priorities, which is probably a far more important discussion tonight, after which the staff has to go back and create a work plan, and then they have to develop a budget. And all of that has to happen pretty much in the next 3 to 4 months. So I guess one question would be, is this the right time for us to be asking the staff to prop up this new thing? Or do we want to try to get through some of these big things that we have to do this year with the new council, new priorities, new work plan, that kind of stuff? So maybe it's a timing thing, and we say, ask the city manager to come back with what is a good timing to have this discussion, because I feel like there are far bigger things we need to be diving so deep on. And I don't disagree with Councilmember O'Farrell. I think we need to talk about this a lot more, but I'm not sure this is the most important thing we need to be talking about this much right now. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Councilmember Stewart. I don't think we should be talking so much about this thing. It was super simple there. So, Scott, for clarification here on the motion, you understand that this is just to bring back a charter for committees. So that's what the ask is of you. Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Lamb.
I don't know where we are in this process right now. I just wanted to respond to Councilmember, our Deputy Mayor Treen, saying that other cities have committees. Yeah, they do have committees, but many of those cities probably are much better staffed than we are. If you just take a look at our neighboring cities, Kirkland, Redmond, Issaquah, they have doubled the number of staff that we do on a per capita per 1,000 residents. We're at like 2 per 1,000. Everybody else is like at 5. So they are more staffed and they have the resources, more resources than we do. So I just want people to take that into account. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 4-3. Thank you, everybody. We'll now move on to the next item of business, discussion of the City Council goals and definitions of success. And Mike Sugg is on his way up. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Council, and good evening. Mike Sugg, analyst in the City Manager's office, joined again by Rachel Bianchi, our Deputy City Manager. And we are here tonight to follow up on goals and definitions of success, which was one of the main topics of conversation at your retreat on February 7th. So just a quick background, goals for the city are relatively new, first adopted in 2022. 2 years later, the council adopted definitions of success to kind of go one level lower and talk about what does success look like for each goal. And just last month, council staff and a handful of dedicated community members attended the annual retreat where we discussed improvements to the existing goals and definitions of success. And you know, the way that we see it is that the goals are a way for council to communicate what is important to you all over the next biennium and beyond. And having shared goals really helps us as a city to set direction and develop a work plan and budget. So staff took the first attempt at revising the existing goals and definition language based on our discussion at the retreat. Please keep in mind that this is very much a draft and we are looking to council for additional guidance tonight. Feedback from the council as a whole, both at the retreat and in the pre-retreat jot form, showed that there was a desire to keep the 7 existing goals. However, there was a little less alignment around trust and transparency in DEIB. Staff completely rewrote the definitions of success based on your feedback. We also condensed the number of definitions of success from some goals had 3, we condensed them all to 2, so that's consistent. In the packet, we also included a few example work plan items that could fall under each definition. We suggest not focusing on the work plan items tonight because the 2027-2028 work plan will be coming back to you soon, and that will provide an opportunity to really flesh out those specific work plan items. So tonight we're looking for council's feedback on the draft language in Exhibit 1. I have 1 slide for each goal. It includes all the language that's in Exhibit 1. So my thought is we would go through each slide, pause, allow council feedback, and then move on to the next, if that works for you all. And following tonight's discussion, staff will return with an updated draft of this based on your feedback tonight. And once those are in place, we can start looking at the 27-28 work plan to look at what specific actions we'll be taking in support of your goals. And before I jump to the next slide, are there any questions? Okay, so first up, we have our environment goal. There was only one change to the goal language itself. At the very end, it used to say ensure a sustainable future. We changed that to say promote a sustainable future, and that's just to reflect what the city has control over. There were previously 3 definitions of success under the environment goal, all of which focused on climate and carbon emissions. During the retreat, you might recall discussing those 3 and desiring to combine them into one definition, which is what we've done here as 1.1. And then we also heard a desire to focus on environmental protection, so we added a new definition in 1.2 to focus on maintaining and enhancing tree canopy, wetlands, streams, stormwater, wildlife habitat, and the park system. So with that quick introduction, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, for any discussion or feedback.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I did make a suggestion, it wasn't discussed at the retreat, that I have a little bit of trouble with this, the goal, protect and, when appropriate, enhance the natural environment. That's such a modifier that it kind of renders the protection of the environment to be optional, and I don't really feel like that's our intent. It could simply say protect and enhance the natural environment and address climate change, et cetera. It just feels like it's a weak goal with that modifier there. That's my suggestion.
Councilmember Boyer. I'm sorry, Councilmember Stewart.
Oh, that's okay. No. So I know even back in 2024, I made this recommendation. So I think that I think we have these goals, and then I think these things that we call measures of success are more like objectives, because they're not specific enough to be a measure of success. So like even back in 2024, I recommended that like if we have this one, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled to meet the city's 2050 carbon emissions goals. Well, our measures of success would be that we created a plan that, you know, shows the things we need to do to be able to get there, right? Because that to me is still kind of a goal, right? It's not a specific measure of success. We're not going to know at the end of a year or 2 years or even 5 years if we're on track with this as our measure of success. We need something that says, you know, we're going to have to create the plan. Maybe this year the only thing we can do that we could view as successful is to say we create our own wedge diagram like King County has, or something of that nature, right? That says we can measure our success this year if we can do these things, whether it's reduce our vehicle miles traveled by 10%, but we might not have a way to do that yet. So maybe our goal has to be a little less numbers based and a little bit more we have to achieve these, we have to get these things done before we can even do that. So just overall, I feel like we have goals and we have objectives, but we still don't really have measures of success. And so that's just, again, a personal opinion, something that at work we deal with a lot is, you know, I think the good news is we kind of all agree on most of this stuff, so that's good, but we don't really have a way at the end of the year or at the end of 2 years to say, did we accomplish what we set out to do? Because how much do we have to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled by the end of 2027 to be successful, right? We don't even know what that is yet. So I think that's one thing. To address the deputy mayors, I think that modifier was supposed to be when appropriate enhance, because we can't always enhance the natural environment, right? Protecting it, not negotiable, but we can't always enhance it. And I think that's where the modifier was intended to be, was to say, we don't want to imply that we could always be enhancing what's there. Sometimes, you know, when we want to put a sidewalk in, that's not necessarily going to enhance the natural environment, right? We will make sure we protect things along the sides of the road, but if we have to do something like that, it won't do that. So I'm not arguing that we shouldn't take it out. I'm fine with that. I'm just clarifying what the modifier was intended for. Thanks. Oh, I guess the question would be if there's consensus to go deeper, do we want to do that? And obviously other people are going to have input, but I think we should try to get a little more pointy on what our measures of success are.
Councilmember Boyer.
I'll begin by saying I support what Councilmember Stewart is saying. I'm used to the same type of a structure. This does strike me as something that's a little more difficult because I'm trying to answer the words here. So when I look at the goal statement itself, I see some of those below. They do look like objectives. They don't look like definitions of success, nor are they metrics. And I guess I think we should define all those. And if we do need objectives, so be it. I agree that when we say protect and when appropriate, just doesn't sit well with me. I think we ought to preserve and protect the city's existing natural environment as a statement. But I also have other language that I would suggest, and I don't know if this is the best way to share that with you, or if you would want that in writing. I could send that, or I could just verbally read to you, Mike, and you could type quickly, which probably would be ineffective. I do think that when we talk about this end state, I look at that as, or the definition of success, to me is an end state. You know, how do we know we've arrived? So you're describing a condition in the future with which you know you're there. So things that I would say are like environmental degradation does not occur cumulative through incremental development. That's an end state. That is how would I define success? That's what I would see. And in terms of metrics, I don't know if we've ever done those, but you could say a metric would be % of development permits demonstrating no net environmental degradation. So those are the metrics are a calculation. They got to have a baseline, a calculation, a numerator, denominator. These ones here are kind of objectives that I see, and also I would alter the environmental statement that you have up there, but I'm not sure how you want to take that. So I will pause there. Maybe I can ask that question, Mike. How would you want this?
I was just going to say, I appreciate you reading those out. If you could also email them to me, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, I gladly. Yeah, I just wasn't sure of the process this evening. So I'd be happy to do that rather than, go on and have you just look at me oddly. So thank you.
I will just add, though, is that we are looking for direction from the majority of the council, right? So you all having that discussion about what you all agree with is what we're looking for tonight.
So do you want just major points? Like I would say, development and infrastructure improvements result in no net environmental degradation with measurable projections, for all the things that you had listed there, maintaining the community's character. So that's kind of the statement that I would make in general. And then below that, you could have objectives, but then my definition of success would be in line with that statement.
Councilmember Lamb.
So for the goal, with the words when appropriate, I would like to keep those. I think it recognizes that there's a trade-off between environmental protection and things such as infrastructure, housing, safety. There are times where we do have to cut down trees to mitigate for wildfire. There are times where we want to put in a sidewalk, to Councilmember Stewart's point, for safety. And we may need to widen a road for some reason. And so there are times where, you have to balance environmental protections with these items. So that is where the words when appropriate comes in. So I'd like to keep those words.
Councilmember Treen.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Michael Boyer in that the first goal needs to just be completely changed and to reflect the changes that he's making there. I mean, as far as, it's about protecting the natural environment for the character of the city. And then if you look at measurables that you would actually want to measure something, especially for environmental protection in our parks, then we should be, the work plan would have wildlife corridors on it. And we map it. I need GIS mapped wildlife corridors. If that's accomplished in the next 2 years, pretty clear that we met the goal of protecting and enhancing the natural environment and addressing climate change through policies that we would be writing and initiatives. So all of that does fit into what you're saying. I would just say, too, that just so that we're aware, I would remove when appropriate, too, because sometimes enhancing the natural environment is to make it so it is fire safe. That is enhancing the wildlife. Sometimes we do a 10% cruise on a forest so that the trees get bigger. That's enhancing the natural environment. Sometimes we would make fish passages that aren't culverts but are box culverts. That's enhancing the natural environment. And sometimes we have to tear up a road to do that. So sometimes road projects are also involved, but in no way should this goal limit what I'm doing with the natural environment because of roads, housing, unless we're going to go to the other goals and do the exact same with them and then put in natural environment and protecting and conserving the land. So we understand there's a conflict here, but don't water down the environmental goal and then tell me that, I'm going to wreck the environment to widen 228 to 8 lanes. 6. Thanks.
Okay, there's no other comments here, so I will say I agree that removing when appropriate is, I think that we should do that. I agree with Councilmember Stewart's read of these are more objectives and not measures, if I heard the words right. And I think people look at these with this idea. There's a lot of program managers and very technical people in our city and they look at what we've put here and they question the wording. So I think it's important that we get that correct, because what we have here I don't think matches measures. On that though, I think if we try as a council to come up with what those measures are, if we're going to spin our wheels on that and spend too much time, I think it is important for the city manager to come up with what those numbers actually are. Not always will it make sense, but we should at least know what we're driving towards. And some of these are more esoteric than others, but we should be, I think, as specific as possible. On the, what I'll now call objectives, I have a challenge with reduction of vehicle miles traveled as a goal or as an objective for us. Not because it's not important, but because do we have the money to actually achieve that? We're realistically losing transit service in Sammamish. How important is that goal when we've got so many of our residents moving to electric vehicles and then PSC moving to more clean energy? Is that really where we want to spend our time? I think if we're going to put our limited time and resources in something, it should be reducing harmful greenhouse gas emissions, and so we should be as focused on that as we can. So I would support removing vehicle miles traveled from there. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, one thing we might consider is instead of calling them measures of success, we could call them key results. And I know it's kind of a little bit of mincing words, but that does give us the ability for things that we might not be able to measure with a very specific number to make it clear that, a key result coming out of this might be a set of policies, right? So we can't measure the number, the amount of greenhouse gases that we've reduced yet, but it might be the mechanism to measure greenhouse gas emissions or a set of policies to do some of that. So I don't know if that's something that would make it clearer so that it's not just numbers, but these are the things we expect to, if we accomplish these key results, we have been, we've done what we set out to do. So a minor change, but something, again, we do at work, and that's helpful. In terms of the vehicle miles traveled, the only thing I'll say is that there's a state law that we have to do that. So if we want to violate the state law and not work on that, I guess I just worry about that, right? There's a clear directive that cities have to reduce greenhouse gases and vehicle miles traveled, and that our comp plans and our policies must support that. Because it isn't just about the greenhouse gas emissions, but it's also about, if there are more people driving longer distances, then we have to put down more roads, right? And that has a negative impact on the environment. So I guess I have some concerns about some of these are things, again, that we really have to do. I do think that we need some additional key results around some of this, or at least maybe they're work plan items, I don't know, but I am very keen on things like creating tree receiving sites, so that if we do have to cut down trees, right, if we're gonna try to have a no net impact, which I'm not sure is possible or even legal, but if we're going to try that, we're going to have a place where we can send trees, right? So that if we have to take trees down, where do we plant new ones? And that's even important for our residents as we look at our tree policies, right? So I think there are a lot of things like that we need to do. And again, I can send these to you in writing. I've sent them before, but that might be helpful if we look at key results instead of just looking at hardcore measurements.
Councilmember Boyer.
I like the sound effects. That's okay. With what Councilmember Stewart was saying, I think I see that the same, that my words, definition of success, which I'm adopting from the materials that we got, to me are synonymous or very close to key results. They are not objectives. So, and I think they're valuable. I think when you paint a picture of what the end state is, people can get that. We could work on what those might be. I gave some examples. Here's another one. New housing development and infrastructure projects avoid or fully mitigate environmental impacts with mitigation occurring primarily on site. That's an end state. And where does that come from? you do have lots of literature that says one house is equal to driving one ICE vehicle for 30 years. So there's a trade-off. And even in our statement, when we say greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles driven, so you're hitting it from both ends, no doubt about it. But that tells me that building has a significant impact on greenhouse gases. More concrete and steel has much more than vehicles driven. So I think we can get clear on what that end-state is. I separate that from metrics. Once again, I'll take it from Councilmember Stewart, that if you have a key result, that frees you up for not having to make it a metric, because you can have metrics that are in support of that are calculations where we can say, here's the numerator, here's the denominator, here is even the trend, the goal, the end state, whatever that might be. For example, we could have impervious surface ratios, we could have acres of critical area protection, we could have tree canopy coverage, and those would then be metrics that would support some quantitative evidence of the qualitative statements of end state, definition of success or key result in support of the goal statement. And Mike, I was able to email you my document for your reference. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other lights up here, but I want to pause and ask, how does all that sound? Was that helpful? Or should we take some votes on some of the ones that were not quite as clear so that you've got some thoughts?
Is this the point where I say that should we have a council committee to pull these together? Maybe too soon?
Too soon.
Sorry.
I think we have some information to work with here. I appreciate the move sort of towards key results, right? I do think that some of those things, we do see the work plan as being some of those things, right? So to your point, is that a true metric, especially in the way that you think of them, right? Many people do, right? No, right? But are they a way for you to articulate all of the great work that the city has done over this period? Because really what we're talking about here is 27, 28, right? As we're looking forward to build that foundation. So we can go do some more work with that. We will review the video a couple of times.
Well, Deputy, I guess I would recommend us not commingling those, because I think that gets confusing. In other words, work plan is actions and tasks. Let's have those be actions and tasks. But for us, I would love to see the goal, and if there's objectives, great. Definition of success, key results, whatever you want to call that, and associated metrics, our measurements, so we've got qualitative and quantitative. But then from that, you should ask yourself, what am I going to do to make that a reality, which is the work plan? And so I wouldn't mix those up. It'll get, because we're not going to resource to that level. You can only resource and load balance at the work plan and the task level. The rest of them become very problematic. So that would be my request.
Mr. City Manager.
Just a quick note for council. Since some of you recall, we've been down this path before. And just to give us a little grace here as we go through this, that a couple of these might be really easy to be able to do. You're describing, Councilmember Boyer. There's a lot of them that are not linear enough to be able to grab specific numbers. And I can promise you right now, I'm looking at Mike and Rachel, and the three of us are going to struggle to try to figure out what that looks like across the board. So one of the reasons that we've tried to bring it to you in this way is we've been down this path before. I think I may have shared with some of you, but there was a lot of I know what I don't want. And we struggled with finding the collective, we know what we do want. And we are more than happy to go take a run at it again and as we go through the rest of these. But I just want to point that out as we go through these, that some parts of this are going to be difficult to get to exactly what you're talking about and get to sort of key measures or metrics, other than we have implemented or produced something for the community. So keep that in mind as we go through this, and when we come back, what you might see is very much a mix. somewhere in there to try to get at all of the goals and to reach that point. So just.
I understood, and I know it's hard, absolutely. And I understand also that you might have a one-to-many relationships, metrics to all these statements. I wasn't expecting a one-to-one metric for every objective or every end state. In fact, that would be impossible. I would say the collective of the goals, the collective of the objectives, the collective of the end states, and you could have a family of measures, a set that speaks to all those, and it could be one. Wouldn't that be wonderful? It's one magical, all-encompassing goal that could do all that. It sounds harder, but I agree with you, Mr. City Manager, that I'm not expecting a one-to-one for each one of those. And I also know this is hard, but you guys are super awesome, so.
Appreciate
Thanks.
that. Thank you, Councilmember.
Okay, if you feel comfortable with where we're at, we can move on to the next one.
Yep, let's do
Okay.
it. Okay, number 2, trust and transparency. I know there's a lot of discussion about this at the retreat, centered around whether it should be a goal or an overarching value. In rewatching the video, it sounded like there was support for keeping it as a goal if we could create more meaningful definitions of success and work plan items. So with that said, the goal language here remains the same as it has been without changes. The definition, or whatever we're calling it for 2.1, is new, and it focuses on enhancing our communications channels, making them more accessible, as well as expanding access to city records. 2.2 focuses on inclusive outreach and engagement as a way to build trust in the government and creating regular two-way dialogue with the community. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Mayor.
Anyone like to go first? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I can do that. I just want to point out, first of all, that when we talked about trust and transparency at the retreat, I was talking about trust and transparency on this dais, not trust and transparency between the city and the residents. And so being able to work on these particular objectives, and it made it clarified for me what you were really trying to do with that goal. So I just wanted to put that on the record. And I do support improving that, and it comes down to having a newsletter that gives people information that they want, being comfortable sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly so that the public understands why we're doing something that we're doing, even if it looks like it's not the smart thing to do, but maybe there are reasons that it has to be that way. So it's helpful and to be transparent about why the decisions are being made. That's just super important. So I didn't have a lot of suggestions for this particular one, but I did in the existing definitions of success for safety. I felt like some of that was really about trust and transparency as well, communicating with the public, engage and educate the community on public safety programs, et cetera. That's part of the same thing, having them really understand how we are working to protect them and keep them safe. That's another trust and transparency thing to me. So that's my observations.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I thought you guys did a great job of actually taking our 3 definitions of success from before and melding it into 2. So thanks for that. I think they're pretty much the same, which is good, because I think we need to continue with the, improving and increasing our outreach efforts always. What I would like to see, and I know, Scott, you're going to be like, we've been down this road before. We need a dashboard. We really need a dashboard. I really believe that. And I also think that we need to get, and again, these might get into work plan items, but we need to get really pointy, I think, around, for me, I think it needs to be around publishing our guidelines and our processes more clearly for the community so that they know, right? Because there were a lot of questions about the processes that we followed over the last couple of years. And I think when you look at the process and you know what we did, we actually went above and beyond what our stated processes even were to have more outreach and to have more discussion. So I would love to see us have things like our guidelines and processes around communications, around consent agenda items, around when we have changes in certain policy types, what are all those processes? We have all of those, but to publish them somewhere that they're easy to find so that it's clear to the public. This is what we do. And this is what we always do. If you don't think this is good enough, let's hear from you on that. But this is what we intend to do. And if we do this, you shouldn't come back after the fact and say, well, you did exactly what you said you were going to do, and now we're mad, right? So we want to be clear up front and set those expectations and make sure everyone's aligned on those expectations. So I would love to see that we do some of that. I know, again, getting into it, but where are we on the website and the searchability of our website? I know that is still a bit of a nightmare. Although Copilot is helping with that because it does a pretty good job of searching our website, but it would be good if our website searched our website.
I can answer that one, and you're probably not going to love it. We have new ADA requirements to meet for all things electronic. And so, spoiler alert, we are going to need to redo our website to meet those new federal guidelines. So that particular work you're describing, Councilmember, is on hold because we know we need to do a wholesale redo, and that will be coming soon to a council meeting near you to talk about that. And it's one of those items that we didn't necessarily pre-plan on because we didn't understand what all the ramifications were until they came out. And so we will be back to talk about that in more detail.
Actually, I actually love that answer because I think wholesale redoing our website is exactly what needs to happen. So it's probably better. Because trying to piecemeal or overlay improvements on what we have is probably going to be harder. So that's not necessarily terrible. I think also for the trust and transparency, and I don't know, Deputy Mayor already brought up some of our things have overlap. Could the safety be in the trust and transparency? Right, there's communications everywhere. But for this, I also think that we need to make sure that our communications are inclusive and equitable, right? So we need to have those goals, whether that's called out under the DEIB goals or here. I think that's really important, right? So like if we're going to do, and I know this is a topic that will come up, but if we're going to do surveys, we need to make sure that we have ways to get that information that is inclusive and statistically valid so that we don't have bias in the information that we use to make decisions. So I want to make sure we do that if we're going to put things out in multiple languages, that we're fairly consistent about how we do that and we communicate that. So, because I don't think our social media posts are only in English, right? So, if that's our main form of communicating, how do we make sure that that's really inclusive for everyone? So I just want to make sure that that gets called out somewhere, whether it's here or in DEIB. Thanks.
Councilmember Lamb.
So yes to a dashboard. And in an earlier version of this trust and transparency, I saw that ADA accessibility updates to the website was under trust and transparency. I think it could be, but I do believe that it belongs in DEIB just because fundamentally web accessibility is about disability inclusion, and it's about equitable services it's about it's being equitable for people with disabilities to access government services. So it should be under DEIB. Thanks.
Councilmember Boyer.
Let's see. As I stated earlier, I think this is more, trust and transparency is more of a behavior. So I've always thought of it as a value and belief. My proposal was to place these type things into a statement for council that this is our beliefs, so they would apply broadly everywhere in everything we do all the time. And even this isn't exhaustive because we skipped over friendly, honest, courteous, loyal, reverent, I mean, this is two things and we need to be more than that. Yet, I'm pretty certain that I'm in the minority on that. So this is fine. What I would suggest on this goal, though, is at the very end, you've got through education and clear communications. I think when goals start to have embedded solutions, they become problematic because it's not exhaustive, and therefore now you're locking yourself in the goal. And then you have different objectives, end states, whatever you want to call them, underneath that, and now we have a conflict. Doesn't make sense. I think this also speaks to when we can't understand or very unclear, well, where should these lower objectives go? Under this goal or that goal? That's what tells me that this is a behavior, not a goal. Be that as it may, I would also want to see definitions of success as well as these are objectives, and then measures, so a metric set with this. And so I think that this is fine. I didn't send you one of these, Mike, because I didn't have this as a goal. So I have no measures for you because I don't know how to measure trust. My wife does, though, so thank you.
I see no other lights on, so I will go. I think Councilmember Boyer makes a good point that adding in the actions as part of the goal makes it a little problematic. So I think you could probably put a period after diverse community and then drop the rest of it off. I've got a challenge with some of these goals are with the 2.1, 2.2, whatever we end up calling it. I have a challenge with us including things that we were going to do anyway, either because it's just what the city does as a matter of course, or because it's a new state or federal law. I think this is something that should indicate we're going above and beyond what is expected of us to just comply with the law. So, and I also think they should be in a way forcing functions for us to decide what ends up on the work plan. If these are done in a way where too many things, we can throw a ton of things on the work plan here under these two definitions. So for example, and I'm not proposing these as the actual solution, but just as an idea of how I'm thinking. 2.1, digitize city records and make records easily searchable for all residents. So put another way, proactively disclose public records. And I see that as important because one, we get so many public records requests that it takes a ton of staff time to manage. And two, I think that actively builds trust with residents because people can just go online and use a working search feature to find documents that they are interested in. So that's how I think about that. And then my other item that I wanted to call out was, and this is a big one, so it probably would fall under this area, but engage in two-way dialogue with residents through quarterly town hall meetings. Some people have different thoughts on whether we should do that or not, but we already have multiple town halls and whatnot for different projects we're doing. So if we're already doing quarterly meetings, we can easily slot project town halls into those anyway. But anyway, just two thoughts on what I'm thinking about on how to do those point ones, point twos. Okay, I see no lights lit up, so I didn't, oh look, I did. Councilmember Stewart.
I like your ideas. I think those are probably work plan items and not necessarily measures of success or even objectives. So again, I think it's great feedback. Like some of the key results that I had written down, when I read them again, after a couple of days, I realized, it's probably more of a work plan item. So I don't disagree with what you said. We probably just have to still keep our structure of what is it we want to accomplish, and we think that a quarterly town hall would be that. Like, and the reason I say that is that just having a town hall is not a measure of success, because it could go really badly. It could not have information. Nobody could show up. So that doesn't necessarily measure success. It's like measuring how many people we engage with or things like that. And what some of the things we might try to do would be having quarterly project town halls. So just, again, great ideas, but leave it to staff to try to write these things down, put them in the drawer for the day, come back tomorrow, and do we have everything at the same level is, I think, the hardest part, right? And I will say, I do know this is really hard because I have to do this every year for work, and it's really, really hard and time consuming. So I appreciate all that you put into this.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes, I have to do this all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do this all the time too, so it's really hard. So we're throwing this at you guys. However, you're up for the task. The language I would use specifically on this is success is achieved when blank. And that's a statement you write. Separate from that is a calculation. I think, I'm going to say this for all 7 of these. So get ready. Because I think they will give you a different level of intention. When we read those, we will know when we see it. If you say success is achieved when, people will recognize that, citizens will see that, and they'll know. And then they'll be able to have by how much is the metric. And so I would ask that for this one also. And I'd love to see, once we achieve trust, tell me what, success is achieved when, and I'd like to know what that looks like. And then the metric, the calculation around that with a numerator and a denominator. So thank you.
Good luck. Deputy Mayor.
I just want to clarify one thing for make sure we're all on the same page. When these goals and objectives or key results or success will be achieved when we're really looking at what we want to achieve in the next 2 years in the biennium budget. Is that correct? Because some of these are going to take longer than that, and we know that. But so what do we want to actually achieve toward that in the next 2 years? That's correct, right? Okay, it's a mindset.
Correct. And again, the goal can be a little broader, 3 to 5 years, but when you start getting down to the, whatever version you want to call it, it should be, where would you like us to aim for the next 2 years as we build the biennial budget?
Great.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, and I think, Deputy Mayor, that's a great question. And I think that's where we'll also have to do a little hand waving at the objective level, because some of the objectives might still be a little bit broader, and that's where the next level of key results come in that says, we have this big goal, right? Our goals are big. Our goals are things that should kind of last forever in a way, right? And then the objectives are chunked up, right? And then the key results are those things, because the key results are the things that are time bound. So that's where you get into, it's specific and it's time bound. And it can be, a measurement with numerators and denominators. It can also be, we've achieved it when we've finalized a policy, right? That we won't say specifically what the policy should do, but we'll say we need to have a set of policies to, enhance or protect the natural environment, right? Those are key. Those are the objectives. The key results have to be we develop those policies and have them approved by December 31st, 2027 or something like that. So I think that's where sometimes the objectives can be more specific. The objectives you can, I think, have a little bit of leeway on how broad or specific they are. The key results are the ones that need to be smart, right? They're specific, they're measurable, they're time bound. So
Yeah, and it can be binary. Did we do it or not? If we have some type of a variable scale, even better, because then it can continue. But agreed.
I see no other lights, and so I ask, do you feel comfortable?
A lot to chew on here, but I think,
Okay.
we captured it.
And I'll just add, I think we get the meta direction that we're getting on a larger scale. If it would be helpful just to sort of focus on the specific goals, if that makes sense.
We'll do our best.
Okay. This goal was previously called public safety. We've added emergency preparedness as well to the heading based on council's feedback and as it better describes the goal. The definitions of success expand on these 2 topics, with public safety covered in 3.1 and emergency preparedness in 3.2. Both emphasize working with our partners and engaging and educating the community, as some of you have noted. And with that, I'll turn it over for discussion.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A suggestion I would make is, rather than public safety and emergency preparedness, which I think is a subset, I would call this public safety and public works. I don't see public works in any of our other goal sets, and we have an immense amount of work. We have public safety and public works that I think take off the bulk of what we do in a city. And so there's a lot of public works issues that come up for me. Now, some of it is in transportation, but not all of it. So I would want to, as I say, I sent these to you, Mike, but something to the effect of deliver the highest practical level of public safety, exceptional and reliable infrastructure, that's public works, and quality of life that sets a regional standard while fostering broad-based economic prosperity, prioritizing essential services, and so forth. Our success would be, a public infrastructure that is well-maintained, reliable, and superior in condition to peer cities. And so those kind of statements are on the public works side rather than just public safety. I think you could easily include emergency preparedness as one of the issues included in there, but as a subset. Some of the measures then, for me, would be more around, the things that our sheriff's department already presents to us, our safety record and things like that. And then what Audrey has presented in terms of, her department and some of those measures. So I think this one is more straightforward. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, and I will send you my stuff in writing so you don't have to type quickly. I don't necessarily disagree that we should have public works. I worry about putting those together because I think as long as we could go beyond 2 objectives below that, just because I think for the public safety, these 2 are already really broad. But for some key results, I would like things like improving the visibility to the community of our emergency management work or emergency preparedness work. And again, that would include evacuation plans, wildfire protections, et cetera, ensuring that we have extreme weather centers available and communication plans for the public, and then aligning all city ordinances with current safety guidelines. And I think, we have work plan items that we're looking to do, right, where we look at our tree code, because right now our tree code is really at odds with our wildfire protection recommendations from our firefighter friends. And then just making sure that we can, again, define when we say, for example, maintaining the high level of public safety services by monitoring public safety response times. To me, the key results would be that we say, here's the SLA that we want to maintain, and then being able to show that, we're maintaining that or not, right? So those would be those key results underneath that objective. And then we could do something similar for public works. Again, I don't care if it's together or separate. We just can't only have 2 things if we put public works in there. I think that would be a lot.
I see no other lights. 3.1 is fine, I guess, other than what level are we actually doing it? King County Sheriff has dashboards. You've got EFR with their reports. So what exactly is the city doing here other than saying we're going to fund the budget for police and fire?
Paying for it's kind of a big deal.
Sure, but
you could have a different service level that you choose to pay for that then would affect those outcomes, right? So I would argue that you, as the council, right, you own the great work of the work that the sheriff's office does and EFR does because you pay for it.
I guess I'd be looking for more of an initiative. Is there a specific thing that we are looking for from our police or fire services that we don't already get that we would like to have done? Whether we can pay for it or not is another question. But outside of maintaining a high level service, and maybe that's good enough, but is there something else that we have? This just, I don't know. It just doesn't feel impactful to me because, Mike, you
One
were
of the
gonna say.
items that comes to mind would be, and that last point talks about providing extensive public safety visibility within the community. We do have our community resource officer program, which is kind of an additional thing that we do that I guess I haven't looked into what other cities are doing, but I'm assuming not all cities have that type of a program. And also doing some things like community academy and police explorers, that type of work. So there's just a few things that come to mind.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we've got an array of languages in Sammamish that in outreach that could be done. So I just think there's something a little bit more specific we can drive to outside of just to me, this is kind of hits almost the basic level. I mean, of course we're saying high level, but this is like a basic operating thing that the city does. So what is the next level that we should strive for as a council? And Mike, I think directionally, I like what you just mentioned. I don't know exactly what it would be, but Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I hear you. I do think, though, that while we get those reports, we don't publish them anywhere for the community to see. So part of it is that transparency to the community that says these are the SLAs and we are or aren't meeting them. I also think we do have to have something around our objectives and our key results that we're looking for. If, in fact, we think, like, for example, Fire Station 83 renovation, that's going to be really expensive. Why are we doing that? Does that help us meet the goals? Because as we go through to look at the work plan and make decisions about what we are and aren't going to do and what we are and aren't going to fund, if we don't have goals around this, then one would argue we shouldn't do these things. So if we don't have a goal and an objective and some key results that say we're going to maintain this level of service, then we aren't going to fund a $10 million renovation on a fire station, right? So it's fine. We cannot have it be an objective and we cannot have it be part of our key results. But then when it comes down to budgeting time, those would be the first things we cut because it doesn't align with what we've defined as the most important things for us to do. So we do need to find a way to write these, that those things that we know in our heart of hearts is important. If it is, can we justify it with goals, objectives, and key results? And if it isn't, maybe it's a one of the things we have to let go of. So I think that's important, right? Is the renovation of Fire Station 83 essential to our public safety? Is it needed to help maintain our, levels of service or maintain standards or do certain things? And I think that's those are important questions to ask. I think the answers are yes, because there are a lot of reasons why we need to do that. We have firefighters who are working out where there's exhaust. We have, we don't meet ADA requirements, so maybe some of those fall under our DEIB goals, but we have to be able to slot these things under some of those goals and objectives or they get cut. Thanks.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The discussion we just had here is why I put public safety and public works together, because I think absolutely public safety, some of that is in place and running well, thank goodness. But I think that's why it gives us some space for public works to be included in there. But yeah, there's probably more than a single objective because we're kind of putting them together. I was also trying to minimize having 12 different goals. And I know when we do that, work items then propagate from there. So you could have 1,000 work items from that. But part of this, I believe, is making disciplined, affordable decisions that benefit all residents. And that speaks to both of those. Like, how well do we maintain our roads? We're at 85, that measure, which is super, when others are at 70, so that's good. However, there is an affordability decision behind that, and should we stay with that? So some of your metrics then agree completely with Councilmember Stewart on SLAs, and we should do that. But there's also something maybe we could invent, like an infrastructure condition index that kind of gives you a rating on all of this and how we feel about that. And I think we can invent a metric like that, and I'd be happy to say more about that at a later date. Thank you.
I see no other lights. Do you feel like we should move? Do you have a clear direction?
Please move ahead.
Okay, perfect. On to goal 4.
Okay. Similar to trust and transparency, there was a lot of discussion around DEIB at the retreat. The only change that we've made to the goal here was to spell out the DEIB acronym. Otherwise, the language in the goal at the top has not changed. Definition of Success 4.1 speaks to advancing the 4 focus areas in the equity work plan, and 4.2 speaks to implementing the city's racial equity toolkit, which is an ongoing cross-departmental effort that we're working on right now, and it includes a report out with the findings. And with that, turn it over to council.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mike and Rachel, I need your help with this because I'm not exactly sure where this fits. But when we were asked back, whenever it was, to send in kind of our wish list for work plan items, one of the things I had put in there was to have a discussion with council about the setting up of a supported employment program at the city level for candidates with developmental disabilities. And in light of this goal, because last year was the first time, or whenever we wrote this in 24, it was the first time we had a DEIB, and we started with racial equity, and then wanting to, at this point now, using that as our jumping off point to kind of expand it and start to include people with intellectual disabilities in there. So I'm not sure if we add that as like a 4.3 or if it becomes a work plan item, but how does it become a work plan item if it's not in our goals? So I would like to see some kind of language in there, whether it's in the goal itself or if it's in the sub goals or success factors, whatever we're calling them, some language about the hiring of or the establishing of or whatever it is, candidates with intellectual disabilities, or I don't know how, I have no words around that. I'm sure you guys, there are lots of cities like Seattle have a supported employment program, King County have supported employment programs, so I'm sure there's lots of language out there and you guys know how to do that. But I would think this would be a missed opportunity if we don't get it in there, so in order for us to have a discussion here at council about the establishing of that program.
So we will have a subsequent work plan discussion, which is where that specific item, right, could come up. I would say, though, it is in 4.1 because it is under the workplace and workforce. If you may remember, and I know you've all had a lot, but when you adopted the racial equity commitment and vision statement, we had a pretty hefty conversation about what does that mean, right? And what the racial equity commitment and vision statement is, it is broad and it does include people with developmental disabilities. It includes people who speak other languages. It includes people in our LGBT community and et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that if that was a work plan item that you all would want to advance when we get to that, it is absolutely represented in 4.1 under the workplace and workforce heading.
Okay, so as it stands right now,
as it is,
there is then
your adopted policy.
There are no barriers to bringing this up
barriers.
as a work plan potential item.
For your other councils, right? Of
course.
But yes, but absolutely.
If it was just up to me, it'd be done now. But I understand that
it would perfectly
I need these
slot.
6 people to come with me on this journey, and I'm not sure if they will, but we'll see. But I just want to make sure that there are no barriers to that conversation.
Perfectly slot under 4.1.
Then I'm good. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, Rachel, you kind of touched on this. I'm almost wondering if we could, when we publish this, is to put the links to the equity work plan and to the racial equity toolkit, because when I read these, I was like, gosh, I have to go reread those documents to know what this means. So I think, one, we could provide those links. I think, two, we might need to get a little more specific because it just, without having to go read those documents, I don't think the public's going to know what these mean, right? And I think they're so important, which is why we could maybe be a little bit, like when we talk about advance the city's equity work plan, what does, like, is there an essence that we could provide on what that means? And even, talking about the 4 areas, right? You talked about workplace and workforce, where a lot of that falls. I just think this one might have to be a little bit more verbose, which I typically don't like. I like it when we can have things that are concise, but there's just so much here in these words that are kind of those words that don't have meaning unless you put meaning behind them. So I'd love to see that, because it wasn't clear to me that things like inclusive outreach, equitable outreach, and inclusive events were still necessarily going to be covered in all of this, which were things that we specifically called out last time around. So I just want to make sure we have that.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I had to go and read the documents that I wasn't familiar with, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's what that is. So somehow that language, if there was a better way to portray that, when I just read racial equity commitment, I've been asked about that, and then I explain, well, it's more around, it's all these things, developmentally disadvantaged, LGBTQ, economically disadvantaged, all those things. But when it reads like this, it seems that it is all just a racial issue. And then without that explanation, and it looks just like this, it means that people have to do research to figure that out, which I think that I would recommend us doing that differently so that it's more clear and obvious. Even though I know once you read it, it's like, okay, that's what that means. Doing that math, we could simplify that. Thanks.
All right, I think we're ready for goal 5.
Okay, goal number 5, housing has not changed, the verbiage of the goal itself. Feedback from the retreat focused primarily on planning housing within centers. So definition of success 5.1 seeks to encourage and incentivize new housing in centers for various incomes, stages of lives, and household sizes. And then 5.2 focuses on enhancing centers planning while ensuring environmental protection. And with that, back to you.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yeah, I would just maybe change the title to land use and housing, not just about housing. I don't know if that's meaningful, but I guess to me when I read that, I thought, oh, there's so much more than that, because there are some other land use issues that we have coming up, like all the zoning efforts we have and how we look at land and how we use land, and it's a major asset of ours. And so I think there's objectives around that. And I think that would, if we broaden that, it's not just housing options to meet a diverse range of incomes and needs. It could speak more. And so then my successes achieved when come up with some different statements, and then how I would measure that in terms of our land use is impacted. So that's just how I would change that. I also would not limit it to just facilitate housing options. I had more in that, and of course I emailed you my suggestion. Thanks.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that this is kind of implied in 5.1, but I feel like in 5.1 we have to more specifically say that we have to meet our affordable housing requirements. And I'm just not, I see like regional growth targets, but that's not the affordable housing target requirements, right? So I do think we need to get specific, and that could be a key result, or it could be included in 5.1. Again, it would be great if we had our dashboard, or at least shared the affordable housing dashboard that King County has here. I think that would be important. Yeah, I think this can work. I'm not sure that it goes far enough, but we could get that in the key results. And I can, again, send some suggestions in, and I'll copy council so people can see. Thanks.
Councilmember Treen.
Hey, so question for clarification is on, if you were to add land use to this goal, do you then, in a sense, would it be also adding another a 5.3? I mean, because I just look at it, that just gets massive. So is that the thinking behind it then? If you, because this is specific, this was, when we did this activity and stuff, this was really specific about housing, right? So I'm just like, I don't know if you need to do land use then as a separate or if you put it in here, it kind of has its own little subsection, it seems to me. Is that what you're thinking, Mike? If we were to do that and agree that that's the way you do it?
I think that'd probably make the most sense. I probably wouldn't set it as its own separate goal in this case. Probably just you'd need to expand it with another definition of success.
I'd be in support of that then.
Yeah, my comment was to not just stick with these two, but that would add to that. And I was trying to make this more comprehensive than housing because I think there's a lot of land use issues that you could argue aren't specifically around a house or a dwelling.
Thank you.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Yeah, I just wonder why would we, what's the point of adding land use? What are we trying to accomplish there?
Yeah, I think some of it is in the comp plan, some of it is our capacity issue, you know, how following the laws and making it available. All the sit-downs I've had with Director David Pyle, it just moved me to say that, wow, one of our primary obligations here is land use, not just housing implementation. And so I think we've got regulatory issues, we've got city actions that could address certain land use, and it could not even be new housing, it could be existing housing and the use of someone's land. And I just, there's a lot of those things that came up made me think like, this seems to be limiting, not that I want to expand this, but it could be more so than just meeting diverse range of facilitating housing, I guess I should say.
Just, sorry, Mayor, it just feels like just to pop land use in there and put like a 5.3, I would just need to know what are we trying to get at? You know, like what is the point of adding the 5.3 to speak to land use that the comprehensive plan doesn't already do? So I just would need to know what's the, you know, the point. What's the point in adding land use there? Of course, land use and housing go hand in hand because you can't have one without the other, obviously.
Yeah, that's part of why I say that.
Yeah, so I just don't know what the 5.3 would say.
Well, yeah, I admittedly suffer a little bit from Dunning-Kruger, where I know a little bit about this, so it makes me overconfident. But I would say that things like, the permitting that we go through, does it meet concurrency and infrastructure broadly rather than, can we have diverse housing? I think some of those things come up. I think a lot of our other issues that we have, like fee and lieu and all that, are land use issues. I could live with it not in there, but since they go hand in hand, that's why I made that suggestion. Not sure if that was good enough.
Deputy Mayor.
Just building on that, Michael, I think one of the things that should be covered, and you're kind of pointing to it, is economic development. It's not just about building houses, although that's the deal of the day. But I think we have a lot more land use planning to do than just housing. It is the one that's a big challenge right now. So anyway, if there was a way to build in a broader statement there, that would be useful.
On this one, I think 5.1 and 5.2 are really close together with the slight language adjustments to either one of them. It could become one item, right? So it's kind of duplicative. And in previous conversations, we talked about these aren't really work plan items that we're talking about here for these, but these are literally work plan items we're going to have. These are going to be the entire topic for DCD to be working on. So I would encourage us to look at combining 5.1 and 5.2 into one thing, because it almost is right now, and then look at specific other items that will invariably become a work plan item. For example, one of them could be like Incentivizing affordable ADU programs because we know infill development is coming, or how do we make sure that people are able to age in place and at the same time also create affordable housing in the process? So something creative like that, that is a specific objective, right, that achieves what we're trying to hear outside of just kind of restating the same goal twice. So I don't know exactly what that would be. I would definitely love to hear what David Pyle thinks, but that's my take on that one. And I think we're ready to go on to the next one.
All right, two more here. We have financial sustainability. The goal language has not changed from what is existing. Definition 6.1 focuses on the new program-based budgeting approach that we're moving towards in 2027 and 2028. This approach will better communicate the cost of city programs to the public and will help to facilitate dialogue on the relationship between taxes and services. And then 6.2 talks about the need for a 10-year fiscal sustainability plan. This is an existing definition of success, but the language was simplified to what you see here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I felt was missing here was the capital projects. So we talk a lot about ongoing revenues and ongoing expenses, but we don't talk about the capital side of our budget, and I think that's critical. So I'm not sure exactly where that would fit in, but we did previously have a fiscally attainable citywide capital improvement plan as one of our objectives last time. And so, again, I don't know if we have to be strict about just having 2 items if we want to have something that specifically addresses the capital side of the house. I think that would be important. I think from a, success measures, I think we can, we would have, and I think this is where to Deputy Mayor's point, this is where economic development should probably also have something where it can fit in here, because to me, that goes into fiscal sustainability as the economic development. Obviously, it would also impact land use, but this is where we need to talk about figuring out other sources of revenue. We don't really talk about that. We talk about, very broadly, right, identify and implement strategies to achieve a 10-year fiscal sustainability. But again, that's just talking about the operations side, and I think we do need to talk about both. So maybe the economic development can fall under 6.2, and we don't have to make any changes. Okay.
Both could, because part of your achieving 10-year fiscal sustainability is still going to be making capital investments.
Okay.
You can't do one without the other, really.
Yeah, it just, since we call out the ongoing revenues and ongoing expenses, it feels like we should call out capital there.
Both can go in there.
Yeah, and then for measures of success, right, I think we have things like our budgets and things like that, but the plan itself would be one of the measures of success that we have, that 10-year plan. I don't know if we want to put in here for objectives around, if I know that some folks talked a lot about this, about not wanting to raise taxes, if that's something we call out as an objective or what, but those are things that are just not addressed. I know for me, finding non-regressive taxes to implement or non-regressive sources of revenue, I think should be clearly called out as some sort of a goal or an objective. And I think we should find a way to do things like publishing our audit results, right? So again, working this into that trust and transparency of what are the things that we can share with and publish to the public as part of that dashboard that we're going to get. Thanks.
Councilmember Boyer. It's your turn.
Good, thank you. Sorry, thanks, Pam. So I guess the first comment I would make is a change from financial sustainability to financial stewardship. The reason why is it sometimes gets confusing when we have a sustainability commission, and then people say, "Oh, do you mean money, or do you mean the environment, or what are you talking about?" So minor change that could help, and I like stewardship better than sustainability, because if I'm just going to sustain, I think we have a fiduciary responsibility to steward our city forward. So that's one recommendation I would make. I agree completely with Councilmember Stewart around capital. So this is not just about expense, it's both sides. And I look at these two items that you have here. One of them I would probably call a definition of success. In other words, we have some fiscal, I'll say, reliability. But the other one seems to be a work item. So sometimes I'm not sure if we're looking at work items which are a result of our goal objectives and the definition of success, or these are them. So I would recommend examples such as, I would say, ensure the city remains financially solvent across economic cycles by living within its means, and et cetera. It's a long sentence. Some of the definitions of success, I would say, are the city consistently adopts structurally balanced budgets across economic cycles. Operating and capital expenditures remain fully affordable, including long-term maintenance and replacement costs, and so on. In terms of measures, these ones are probably easier than many of the other categories in the financial world. We could have one that's, I think, is important, which I would call operational discipline. So you have annual operating expenditures divided by total city population. So you have costs per resident, and so you have operating expense over total population. And that's one that we can see what we're doing. You can trend that. There is also structural budget balance that we can adopt. Capital affordability ratio is one that I'm particularly interested in, that says it's a percentage of annual operating revenue required to support the ongoing operating, maintenance, and replacement costs created by recently completed capital projects. So you've got that, which is annual OPEX plus maintenance costs from new asset divided by annual operating revenue, and you can track that. And I think that keeps us out of trouble. And I think that would also get to an end state or a key result or a definition defined by adequate reserves are maintained to withstand revenue downturns without service disruption or tax increases. So that's an end state. Thank you.
Councilmember Trine.
Michael, you're gonna send those to Mr. Suggs on the finance? Yeah, I like that. Hey, so I have a question, because not my expertise here, but is it possible that we could adopt a zero-based budgeting versus a program-based budgeting? And the reason why I bring that up is because we have a challenge, right? And it's like some of the things that I do with my students is to create a baseline. It's like, here's the baseline of behaviors, and we know this is where the city is, this is what we pay for, right? And so I'm just wondering if that's something that the city could do to help. And maybe this is more of a work plan item versus a goal, because my thinking is you do that one time, and now you have this new baseline that says, okay, here's where the city's at, and then here's how we're going to set up for the next each of the cycles. So we're sitting right at the chance to go to a new cycle, and it's like, okay, if we do this now, then I have my new baseline.
So starting next month, we're going to come to you on fiscal, I like the stewardship, right? And to talk about all of this, talk about where we are today, where we were, right? And this is all, and I say that because this is all getting ready for the budget. And ultimately, the budget is going to be your direction at the end of the day, right? So we're going to have a lot of conversations about the bottom line here over these next couple of months. And then as you all give us direction on how you want us to look at the budget. So those opportunities are coming, is what I'm saying.
Okay. So, but it is two different ways of doing it. What is this goal or the objective of 6.1 of adopt a program-based budgeting is different than zero-based budgeting?
You could adopt a zero-based budgeting that still identifies everything by program. Because what all a program-based budget does is it allows you to be able to dig deeper into the budget. So instead of the city manager's office, right, you're able to see all of the different programs that run in the city manager's office or that the city manager's office touches. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank
So they're
you.
not mutually exclusive.
Thank you.
So which one are we doing, by the way? Are we doing net change or zero base?
There'll be more conversations
More
about that.
conversation.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, so I also like financial stewardship. I think that's good. I like the program-based budgeting. I think that's a good item to have in there. The fiscal sustainability plan, I think, is kind of duplicative of the goal, so I think we can afford to drop it. I agree with Councilmember Boyer about the need to understand our CapEx long-term costs there. I also like the idea of when, given the budget situation, to look at doing zero-based budgeting and program budgeting. So I would put 6.2, I would put 6.1 as zero-based budgeting, 6.2 as program-based budgeting. So I know you're coming back with that, but we're talking about, or coming back with potential
get a
options.
peek.
So, yeah. Anybody else? Councilmember O'Farrell.
I'm sorry, but I don't know what zero-based budgeting is. So I would be uncomfortable with putting that in there until I fully understand what that is compared to what we currently do. And I don't know what that second thing is that you said either. I have no idea. I have great confidence in our city manager and our finance department that they are doing everything they're supposed to be doing per all the state laws. So I would need to understand what all those things are before I would ever be comfortable putting that in a goal.
Councilmember Stewart.
Maybe as the objective here, it should be to adopt a budgeting system that provides the clarity and, ability for both the council and the public to understand and dive deeper, something like that, to kind of pull it out of the solution and to talk about, what the objectives are, so that when we make the decision on how we're going to do it, that's more in the weeds, right? And so a key result would be like, we pick a method and we execute on it, right? So that way we leave it open, since we're still going to have conversations about exactly how that's going to go. I don't know if that works for everyone.
I think that's a pretty good solution. So I'm comfortable with that. If there's no objections, great. Okay. Next.
Okay, last but not least, we have transportation. Again, the goal language here has not changed. 7.1 was written to address council's feedback desiring improvements to the city's transportation network, both for vehicles and multimodal. 7.2 is new and more specific to addressing the need for the city to partner with the school districts, transportation or transit operators, HOAs, and other entities in support of the city's transportation network.
Deputy Mayor.
So for the goal overall, I'm comfortable with. I think for the strategies that we're going to use, or the objectives or the key results, I would like to see us focus on some quick wins in improving safety on our roads. We're mired down in lengthy studies that are very expensive for projects that we have no way of raising the money for. And I'd like to see us, I'm not sure what the right language is, I'll let you wordsmith a little, but I would like to see our focus for the next 2 years be on completing sidewalk gaps and putting in some crosswalks where they're needed. We're approving developments all the time right now with frontage improvements, which is required, and then a sidewalk gap to the school. I mean, that we're creating the gap. And so I would really like to see us focus on, sidewalks, bicycles, crosswalks, and trail connections to improve multimodal transportation in our city. And those things are far less expensive than widening roads and adding lanes and that sort of thing. So that's my hope for the transportation for the next 2 years.
Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I think we need to have some specific key results, and I think that's where those could show up, right, is that these are probably still the right objectives, but the key results are how we define. We want to increase, like for me, I have one that says, ensure every school has safe multimodal routes to school within 1 mile of the school. Or a plan to implement within 5 years, right? So to me, that's the key result. It's time bound, it's specific, right? And it kind of gets to some of those. I also think we need to have some sort of a key result that says we have a plan to get residents to the light rail at Marymore without driving in their individual cars. Because March 28th, the light rail opens across the bridge, and so people can not only commute to downtown Redmond and downtown Bellevue, but they can go all the way to downtown Seattle and even to the airport. So really being able to move people there without individual cars will be a huge positive impact on us. So having some sort of a key result there that says by, the end of whatever, 2026 or end of, H1 of 2027, we have a plan. And then like increasing access to programs to the entire city, like MetroFlex and Community Van, that can fall under the partnerships things, but getting, again, very specific measurements, and implementing at least one new pilot program to increase public transit options. Would be a key result for me, like the Bellhop program, or I forget what the name of the one that they just started in Redmond, which looks really awesome as well. So I would like to see us have those as key results that would fall under either one of these, right? In that they're multimodal, they're going to be partnerships and whatnot. So thanks.
Councilmember Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am good with this. I would just add to it more about reducing congestion, improving reliable and efficient point-to-point travel times. On our arterials, I heard so much of that during the campaign, and I hear about that every day around congestion and point-to-point and such. I agree with what was said on the dais here from my associates, so this is addition to that. I think, once again, I'm struck by these, to me, are not really definitions of success or results. So I think these get more into how we're going to do this. So I'm not sure what to do with these. But I would say, for me, a definition of success has to do with point-to-point travel times on major arterials are shorter and more reliable than baseline. Peak hour congestion on identified arterial bottlenecks is measured and reduced, and so forth. So I sent those to you, Mike. There's many more, so you can see those. And then for metrics, the usual suspects around peak hour travel time, intersection delay, vehicle throughput, things like that. So the usual suspects. So, and it is all around multimodal in terms of capacity. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say I agree with everything that's just been said. Deputy Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, Councilmember Boyer, and particularly when you talk about congestion, Councilmember Boyer, I think that's something that comes up time and time again. I would love if we could get to a point where we're working on maybe looking at our intersections around our high schools, particularly, and kind of trying to come up with something to help alleviate the backup that happens on 228 that's going south down towards Discovery Elementary, where they have a quicker way of turning off that road and into the campus. That could help. So, and I understand these are work plan and more kind of policy issues, but looking at speed limits on 228, maybe that a reduction of our speed limits, especially coming down that hill as you approach Southeast 4th. And that the rapid rate at which traffic come down, we've had several accidents coming down there at that intersection where we meet Crusader Way. I understand those are more policy issues, and that's too much in the weeds for this. But I just think down the road, that's something that we should start looking at, and that we could have a really good quick win on something like that and would be very impactful, and our residents would see that. So yeah, but I concur with everything that's been said. Thank you.
Councilmember Trine.
Okay, I'm different. So I'm just going to say that this all sounds really great, and I like the word holistic because I like to look at the whole city because I represent all the residents in the city of Sammamish, as we all do. But if you're going to improve the safety, travel times, the overall transportation network of the city of Sammamish, and you are actually going to want to access or use light rail, which I think is a great idea. If we don't have anything on here about working with WashDOT on the Sahali Way roundabout or that intersection down on 202, you might as well remove all this and work on how we're going to have what we think we could get here to Issaquah for 2041 or 44 or 50. So a quick win is take $1.5 million of our budget and do 10% designs for WashDOT on that intersection, which the concept of what that should look like has already been drawn. So it would be in our best interest as a city to work with Redmond and WashDOT to say, hey, this intersection right here is our choke point, and if you want to accomplish any of these other great plans and goals, you have to address that. And then to add on to that, if transit is actually going to be a solution for this community, then you have to have a dedicated bus lane or a way to run a bus that can operate faster than the cars, because that's when people will actually get on it. So I don't see that anywhere in here. So at this point, I would scrap goal 7 as the way it's written and rework this to talk about how we're going to fix the choke points in our city versus, hey, safe schools, right on, let's put the sidewalks in. But at the same time, it's like, really? How much am I going to get for $1.5 million of sidewalk when I can actually have a plan started that I can then go in and get some grant funding and have the state actually build the solution for us? Thank you.
Councilmember Boyer.
I think here's the benefit of us doing this in this manner, because I'm, again, learning things I did not know, and Councilmember Trine's explanation means a lot to me. And so I would jump on that also and support what he's saying. Makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to add that for gravity.
Deputy Mayor.
I was just going to suggest that the 7.2, we're talking a lot in there about partnering with our internal HOAs and school districts, et cetera, but if we could add our adjacent communities and WashDOT and King County, then we would have something that addressed that as well, that we could put work plan against.
Yep, I think we tried to get there with the other public and private entities, but we'll be more explicit.
So on this one, I'm largely okay with it. I do think we need to have something in there explicitly about congestion relief in place. And I think I echo what Councilmember O'Farrell was saying about some of the quick wins. What are the smaller projects we can focus on that'll have, an outsized impact that we can do relatively quickly compared to other ones? I think we need to zero in on some of those. And I do agree about the 202 roundabout. That needs to happen. But, okay, going back to I want to go back to the last goal, sorry, there's no other lights on. So the public will take the goal numbers, and I think there'll be an inference of priorities. And if we're going to go to the public with either cuts to services or tax increases or both, financial sustainability can't be near the bottom of the list. I think we need to move that to the top priority because we can't do goals, any of the others, without a financially stable city. So I think we need to show clearly to the residents that being good financial stewards or fiscally sustainable is our top priority for this council.
And if I could,
I've opened up a can of worms. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, I hear you. I also heard at the retreat that things like the environment and DEIB don't need to be goals because they're the most important things and they're just in everything we do. So I sort of feel like if we're going to have a discussion of priority ordering of these, that might get a little dicier. Maybe we just don't number them so we don't imply an order because I think they're all critical. And I think if we start to get into that, we're going to open a can of worms, to use your quote. So I'm not saying being good financial stewards is not important, but I don't know that it's more important than safety, and I don't know that it's more important than protecting the environment or more important than making sure we have a safe and inclusive community for everyone who lives here. So it's really hard to rate those. Thanks.
There's nobody else, so I'll just say we can't do any of the other things if we don't have a good budget in place. So, sorry, Mike, yes, thank you.
yeah, I think you understood this, Mayor, but these goals were not numbered in any particular order. It was just a way for us to be able to reference them here. So council has not taken any action before to do any sort of prioritization, just for the record.
I get that. I did bring it up with the city manager, but there is a number attached to it. It does appear in the work plan in an order, and there will be, I think there will be an inference of what that means to the public.
Yep, completely understand.
We're going to need to vote on that if we're going to put them in some sort of priority order. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to.
Mr. City Manager, are you going for your mic?
Yes. Council, may I suggest, we've gotten a lot of feedback. I think we have a whole lot of work to go back and do to try to pull things together. I think I would ask to hold all of that till we get to something a little more tangible for all of you, and then you can decide collectively how you'd like to rack and stack these depending on what the outcome is.
Thank you. I think we were done with transportation. There were no other lights up, so great. Are we done?
We're all done.
All right, congratulations, everybody. We made it through that. All right, we are now moving on to public comment. We would love to hear from you after that discussion.
Anybody that stayed this long,
Would anybody in the audience like to?
You earned it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, please state your name and your city of residence, and you've got 3 minutes for public comment, and at 3 minutes, I'll start to cut you off.
Hello, City Council. I'm Swan Jacobson, Swinomish resident of 11 years. I'd like to speak briefly on the City Council's goal number 4, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, specifically addressing the measures of success, or whatever label they end up with. I think it is important that the city maintain a clear and vocal support of all concerned communities and individuals, such as members of religious minorities and LGBTQ+ or disabled peoples, alongside the city's dedication to racial equity. I understand the intent is to include more based on the actual language of the racial equity commitment, but that isn't communicated clearly right now, especially if residents aren't familiar with the wording of that document, as I wasn't until recently. Additionally, given some of the discussion about whether or not DAB and some of the other topics should be defined as a goal for the city, I want to stress the importance of clear and vocal support from government, both as an operating body and from individual officials. It is not enough, and it is never enough, to assume that because something is legally required, it is automatically included. Vocal support and action that proves that support is the only way to demonstrate a genuine interest in maintaining a welcoming community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for creating a space where I feel able and feel comfortable to speak up here.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anybody online?
We do. Those who have pre-registered to provide online comment, please raise your hand if you'd like to give comment at this time. Promoting the first commenter. Please start your comment.
Thank you. Heather Murphy-Rains, 20-year resident. I want to address the direction this council appears to be taking regarding public comment, First Amendment expression, and community engagement. The decorum changes you voted on tonight raise an important question. What exactly qualifies as a personal attack versus legitimate criticism of elected officials? And more importantly, who decides where that line is drawn? You are leaving the city open to potential litigation. More importantly, you are telling the community that their input is not valued if it's not all pretty. In a democracy, criticism of elected behavior is not harassment or personal attack, it is accountability. Residents must be able to speak candidly about the actions, decisions, and conduct of their elected representatives while still addressing the council as a body. If the practical message becomes public comment is welcome as long as it does not critique specific council members' behavior and decisions, then that undermines the purpose of public comment entirely. Civic engagement is not just flowers and sunshine. Sometimes it includes frustration, disagreement, and tough questions. I also understand that legal review may be necessary still, and the policy may need to be returned for additional action. I strongly urge the council to carefully consider the implications of restricting public expression before moving further. Applause is a long recognized peaceful form of civic expression, yet this council has led applause when it suits its narrative and discouraged it when residents applauded viewpoints that differ from the council's direction. When rules are applied selectively, decorum becomes less about maintaining order and more about controlling expression. Many governing bodies manage this effectively by limiting prolonged disruptions, not by labeling ordinary applause as intimidation. Allowing brief applause while the next speaker approaches the microphone maintains order without suppressing civic participation. Transparency, fairness, and open dialogue are the foundations of public trust. You are clearly moving forward in a direction where you do not trust Sammamish residents, and that may very well become a two-way street where residents don't trust you. I urge the councils to ensure that the decorum policies strengthen community engagement rather than discourage it. I find it shocking, actually, that the progressives and libertarian council members on this council are pushing this forward. We are Sammamish. We are not some other town or board that was mentioned tonight, and our rules should reflect the reality that exists here on our ground, not hypothetical situations from other communities or states. Sammamish has a long history of robust public comment, as the mayor pointed out. Residents here are engaged, informed, and deeply invested in their city. Basing our policies on problems that happened elsewhere, rather than what has actually occurred here, feels unnecessary and chilling to free expression. Finally, it's 3.5 months into the new council term and there's still no adopted council work plan. That leaves the city without clear policy direction or following the previous council's directions who were voted out. Perhaps that should be your focus. Thank you.
We have 2 more online public comment.
Okay.
Please begin your public comment.
Good evening, City Council. This is Mary Wichter. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just because I think it's super important that people feel comfortable. It's very hard to go in if you've spoken or never spoken in public comment. You don't know what's going on. And then if there's groups of people, I believe that we should clap in appropriate places in meetings, and they used to want to take it totally out, and I was the one that stood up and said we need to do it. But for public comment, and it's not just for this city or other places or other states, people need to be able to be quiet so that they can be heard, and if there's big applause, it's actually threatening to talk. I've actually had that in the last year feeling it, and as you know, I've been doing this a long time, so it's important that everybody gets a chance to give public comment and speaks to what they say, whether or not it conflicts with other people. And then everyone can listen, and then they get their chance. Thank you on the beginning, and that every single voice counts. There have been people that just one person standing up saying one word sometimes makes a big code change. So thanks for putting residents as in singular or plural in groups. Also, after public comment, particularly when Don Jaron was mayor, he did start sometimes asking if anybody had any questions or would ask one himself. And sometimes that was important so that you could get really quick on the spot thing to clarify what the concern was or to speed up or reduce efforts for follow-up. On abstentions, I think you covered it today in your code. I don't want every time that there's a vote that you say for, against, and then abstentions. Abstentions have only happened once or twice in the 10 years I've been watching. And one of those with the Planning Commission when somebody lived in a landslide hazard drainage area when we were doing that type code. So anyway, I'm glad that you had the discussion on it, but I think that shouldn't be a big part of any meeting. We certainly need the time to focus on other things in our meeting. And then on committees, I did want to speak to that. Prior councils did use committees. It's not unheard of. There is stuff that we used to do. Typically, there was one city council member or maybe two. I mean, three could be assigned, but usually only one or two attended. Those meetings were during the day. They weren't in the evening. And usually the assistant city manager attended. Sometimes the public works director did, or another person like one of the stormwater. We worked on stormwater prioritization and funding, and also the policy for stormwater. And then transportation was another one. A lot of the work that went into getting the East Lake Sammamish Parkway intersection, which is not in our city, where that meets in Redmond, the road there, that was talked about. The very first roundabout and things that were done and bound by the Gray Barn, those were actually part of discussions. A lot of that was headed by Tom O'Dell, who knew a lot about things. But anyway, we don't want to have committees as something to do to figure out what, if we have a reason to have them, then we should have committees. So that's my words.
Promoting our last public commenter.
Good evening, City Council. Paul Stickney, Sammamish. Really good meeting. Impressed with inputs across the board. Have got a little bit to cover that I heard about tonight, so just take that accolade because I truly, genuinely feel you all did a really good job tonight talking and bringing up issues. A couple points on the rules of procedure. Under Section 2.1, agree with adding individual residents as well as resident group, but give some consideration to beyond best available science, adding the term best management practices. That's something else. In rules 2.91 and 347, this is a little bit of a conundrum to me, and if I'm off base, I don't intend to be off base. But these topics talk about council members talking with their peers as well as the mayor. That could pretty quickly reach an OPMA issue. I think you should have some sort of statement about that here, because it's actually encouraging that. So if it's appropriate, work in a OPMA guardrail on that. I'm going to jump to the council goals for a second. I heard all the conversations about as appropriate. My intention is as needed. For example, if we have environmental concerns in Sammamish that are outstanding already, then they don't need to be enhanced. I agree with as appropriate, but maybe that should be protect and as needed enhanced. Good comments on Highway 202, adding in capital, adding in reserves, lots of accolades. But I'd like to leave you with a couple interesting things I found that I had forgotten existed as I was putting together past council retreats going about 20 years and studying what the work plans have been over that time. Let me jump to the end. In the 2018 retreat, which is on the dates of January 19th and 20th, on the Civic Web, you will find 7 legislative committee charters. Prior councils had those charters, but only 2 or 3 meetings were active. But the city manager was on 5 of the 7, and deputy city manager was on 2. But they have the same format, lots of detail. It's a great starting point to investigate committees. And last thing, prior councils did committee as a whole for large topics, including the last comprehensive plan in 2015. All right. Appreciate the chance to speak. Thank you.
That's all for public comment.
Thank you very much. Up next is council reports. I'll just start down the dais. Councilmember Lamb.
I have a solid waste advisory committee meeting on Friday. I sent out the agenda. The main topic is the tentative King County solid waste disposal rates. So we'll be discussing that, and they will potentially go up 6 to 7% as it is now.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyer. Councilmember Stewart.
Yeah, we have an EFR meeting on Thursday, and I sent out the agenda. If anybody has any questions or comments, please share. Deputy Mayor, you shared some information. Thank you. I have some questions, but my overall comment for the King County Transportation District, as I understand it, King County's transportation budget is almost zero. I think they have $10 million, which may sound like a lot, but given how large King County is, that's nothing. They've already started closing roads because they can't afford to maintain them safely. So while I don't love the idea, I'm not sure what all the cities are hoping to get. If we do something where we say all the cities should get some proportion, Seattle's probably going to get most of that anyway. So I say let King County have the money if they need it, because those roads in the unincorporated areas are big connectors to get people from here to there. So that would just be my one point there. Unless they have some other funding source that I'm not aware of, I say let them have it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just report that I had a brief conversation about that at the last meeting. And because they're trying to be more equitable about where the money is allocated, since we're paying, Sammamish is paying a bunch, we will be subject to it. And they are planning to do some kind of an equitability adjustment, so I'll see what that turns out to be.
Yeah, I would just rather it go to unincorporated King County than Seattle at this point, because people will be stranded if we can't keep those roads open. And they depleted a lot of their funds when they had the flooding, right? A lot of that flooding hit the unincorporated roads, and there was a ton of repairs that they had to do. And as we know, you don't get 100% of that reimbursed, so they're struggling.
Right.
Councilmember Tree.
Yeah, EF&R on Thursday, as Councilmember Stewart noted, and then I'll let you know exactly when it is, but the ILA for the Kokanee work group is going to meet here before the end of the month. So once I get the agenda out, I'll get that out to you all. Thanks.
I also have the Eastside Fire and Rescue Board meeting, and then there's Eastside Transportation Partnership this Friday, and there's one other meeting that I'm attending that was already mentioned by another council member. So, Deputy Mayor.
So I will be at the PIC meeting tomorrow night, talking about tax. And then just want to report that I'll be participating remotely next week for the meeting.
Councilmember O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let Council know that on February 27th, Councilmember Lamb and I met with the ISCO School Board. We had our first initial meeting with Matt Coyne, and it was just really a meet and greet, and we came with an agreement that we would begin to meet quarterly. So, and inviting other members of the board to come and kind of talk about issues like that. So we have kind of started the ball rolling on that. Today I spent from like about 9 o'clock this morning to about 3 with RIA 8 today. I'm on the grant review committee. We saw 2 projects online, which is grateful we didn't have to go up to Mukilteo and Edmonds today to look at that. And then we went on site to Kerry Creek in Hobart, where we had to very gingerly walk along the side of a road hanging onto a guardrail to get down to look at a project down there. And then we went to, where's the second place we went to? Then we went to Belmondo and looked at their, which is on the Cedar River, and looked at their project right there. So it was very educational to kind of see some of the projects out there and recovering from the flooding that happened in December. So that was really wonderful. And then the last thing I have, on March 24th, which is a Tuesday night, and we do not have a meeting here, there will be a scout troop coming to visit PAC 571. They're coming here at 6:30. They're fourth graders. So I will be here, and we have the council chambers booked for that time. It's from 6:30 to 8 thereabouts. So please come and meet everyone. And they're here just to learn about local government.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick item. It's more of a save the date, but just want to let everyone know our annual recycling event is coming up on April 4th from 9 to 3 at Eastside Catholic. And so we'll be putting more information out about that, but just want to give people advance notice.
All right, thank you very much. I don't think we actually need a motion to adjourn for this meeting, so we are adjourned. Thank you.